We are live. What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Big Dave Martell, the Tower of Power, too sweet to be sour, your beast of a host from the East Coast. And I'm here joined with my fellow culture dad, Mr. Mike from Imperium Press. Mr. Mike, what's going on? How we doing, sir?
I'm doing good. I'm pumped for this AMA. The last one was really a lot of fun. And this is our maiden voyage on the Culture Dads YouTube channel, doing the live streaming on YouTube on this channel. So I'll say anybody who's listening, whether it's live or if you're listening to the podcast afterward when it drops, go over there. If you search Culture Dads with a K on YouTube, just go and sub to it. We've got lots of awesome content. I think we're really punching above our weight in terms of the videos, what they look like. You guys love the podcast. I don't need to talk about that. So it's we're just stacking dubs.
Stacking them dubs. Hell yeah, I love it. Yeah, the YouTube channel, man, I'm proud of you guys. You guys are like real. For you guys that don't know, I don't have anything to do with the YouTube channel. I just kind of like give my little feedback here once in a while, and these guys are just crushing it. Their videos look so great. I'm very proud of them. I get a lot of compliments on it. It's like I didn't even do nothing. It feels pretty good. But yeah, the YouTube over there is doing good. So guys, make sure you guys are subbed here on the YouTube channel and help us grow here, bro. Help us grow. Once we reach 1K, we can go and we can monetize and do all that cool guy stuff. So help us get to that. And we got cool Culture Dad shirts over there on Imperium Press. So go over to imperiumpress.org and go click shop, or was it shop or store or whatever it is, and go find some Culture Dads merch. We got cool Culture Dads gear available there. Good stuff. I got some. I got all my boys ordered them. So we got, we're repping the K Dads out here. But
I wear that Culture Dads t-shirt. I've got the two. I've got one. I've got the white one with the classic logo, and I've got the black one with the cassette logo. Oh, yeah. And I get compliments on them everywhere I go, especially the cassette one. People really like that one. So, yeah, and I don't know, it just fits me nicely. The fit of the shirt is just like good for me. I don't know, just my body type or whatever. So, they're dope, man. I really, genuinely, people mention them fairly often when I wear it.
They are a flattering cut, aren't they? They are a flattering cut.
Somehow.
So, yeah, you guys go get you a shirt. They look dope. You go around. He's got the nostalgia vibe. You guys are going to love it. But, we did we've done a few live shows already, the Culture Dads. A lot of our content is behind paywall, and then we've been leaking out little bits onto the YouTube and stuff like that. The hardcore Culture Dads that are in there behind the paywall have already been with us. But, this is another live stream that we're doing because we got a lot of really great feedback from our last live stream. So we brought it again with an AMA, an Ask Me Anything. And we put out the call a few weeks ago we're going to do AMA. We got a whole stack of questions we got to get through, and we're going to run through them. But guys, getting to 1K subs on YouTube is tough. It's tough. It took me like 2 years to do it. So we're already crushing it. Where are we at? 500 or something like that. So
we're probably going to break 600 the next day or so.
Hell yeah. So you guys listening right now, if you guys are big fans of the K Dads, fellow Culture Dads out there, give us a share on your social media and your Telegram chats, your Discord servers, wherever you're at on your Twitters, and tell people to come sub and check out some of this great content. We're talking about all the stuff that everybody loves: music, movies, history, philosophy, all that stuff. So we get into all that from our point of view. So everybody already knows the deal. So Mr. Mike, we have a big stack of questions from folks, from everything from art to politics to personal endeavors to all kinds of stuff. And not just from the Culture Dads, we're hearing from the Culture Moms too. So we're going to do a lot of that. So Mike, do you have the questions queued up, right?
Yeah, I think I got most of them. If there are some that you have at the end that I don't, then we'll do those. But I think this is a good one to start with here. Somebody asked, how did you guys meet and decide to begin Culture Dads?
So I was doing the Bog and Mike was doing Imperium Press, and Mike reached out to me when he released, I believe it was Beowulf, when you first released Beowulf, and you're like, yo, Dave, I like the Bog. Can I come on and this and that? And I was like, hell yeah, this looks awesome. So I bought Mike. Yeah,
actually, it goes back a little further than that. Even I think that's what, because we got the same question on Millennial, and I think that was what you mentioned there. I've been watching Dave's streams for quite a while. I believe I was watching the Bog back before I even started Imperium, but it might be that it was Dave Martell live. Anyway, I saw him on Heel Turn. Whatever you were doing on Heel Turn, yeah. I saw him doing that. I was like, this is dope, man. So like Heel Turn was amazing. There was like I know there was a lot of drama behind the scenes, but the content of that channel was like just fucking dope. Like it was really, really cool. There was like Stephen McNallen had a podcast. Yeah. There's a bunch that I don't remember their names, but like it was like watching a TV channel where there was just like cool stuff like one after another. So I got hold of this podcast by a guy by the name of Dave Martell, and it was just this guy sitting in front of a mic and talking about heathenry and cool stuff, and I was just like instantly hooked. So anyway, Heel Turn disappeared after a while, and I lost track of Dave. Then when I started Imperium, I was like thinking about, okay, well, it's a new publishing company, and nobody has heard of us. Like we had a couple good, like releases right off the bat that were. One of them did pretty well. That was Nemesis. Like the author, we had a bit of a built-in audience, so we got a little bump at the start or whatever. But I was hustling, right? I was trying to figure out like how can I get this thing in front of as many eyes as possible? How can I get these books into as many hands as possible? And I thought, okay, well, I remember this guy Dave that did this like cool podcast on Heel Turn. So I actually looked Dave up on Facebook. I looked him up on Facebook. I bet I could go back on my Facebook page and like actually look at the conversation if I went, dug it out or whatever. But so I asked him, would you be interested in interviewing me? I'm a new publisher that's like, publishes classics and blah, blah, blah. I gave him the pitch. And he said, yeah, sure, let's have you on. So the very first stream we did together was me and him and Tristan on the Bog talking about Indo-European reconstruction. I think that video might actually still be on the Bog channel. So go check that out. Probably a lot of you guys have not watched that. And I thought it was a pretty good interview, actually.
It's a great interview. I remember that now. I remember
happy with it. Yeah, I was very pleased when it was done. So go check that out later. That's a little, Bog or K-Dad's, prehistory or whatever. That was the first time Dave and I ever like talked, really. So anyway, from there, we kind of got to know each other a little bit. I started watching the Bog again. When I messaged him on Facebook, I was like, I didn't know you were still doing stuff. So, I checked out his YouTube channel and I started binging all those videos. And then we just started talking and got to know each other and joined like some of the same Discord servers and blah, 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 blah. And then the story picks up where Dave left off. So keep going with that.
Damn, I didn't know that. I do remember that. I do remember the Indo-European reconstruction episode. So you're right. You're right. We did.
I was just this nobody that just like messaged you out of nowhere. And you were like, come on, bro. Let's talk.
Yeah, because you messaged you. I remember now. I was like, all right, this guy sounds interesting. So I brought him on, and Mike just like knocked it out of the park. And I just thought he was a really interesting guy. So we kept the correspondence going. And then later on, the Bog ended, and me and Mike were kind of, talking about doing a collaboration on some stuff. And I pitched him this idea for Culture Dads. I was like, yo, what do you think about me and you do a pod? Cause I was like a free agent at the time, and I like doing the duo stuff. I like having a co-host and stuff like that. I can do solo stuff because everybody's seen me do solo streams and everything like that, but I have more fun with a co-host. I think it's a better dynamic. So I reached out to Mike and I pitched him this idea, right? And we were kind of talking about different types of collaborations on things, or doing a book together, doing this together. We wanted to work on a project together on something. And I was like, yo, what do you think about a podcast where we do deep analysis about pop culture? And he's like, dude, I don't know. I might be the wrong fucking guy for that. I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, this is money. Two dads, base dads that are both in the publishing industry, right? Because at this time I'm starting up the Bizarchives, and let me tell you guys something. There would be no Bizarchives, or at least not where it's at now, without Mike. Mike, like, he really helped. He was like my mentor with the publishing thing. Taught me a lot. So, like, I was like, yeah, we're both in publishing now. I was like, we're both fathers. We both have a folkish worldview. I was like, we both love retro, old school shit. We're both music heads. We're both into this shit. And he's like, I don't know. I haven't really seen many movies, and I haven't played that many games and stuff like that. I was like, let's try it. And that dynamic that he was worried about turned out to be one of the best dynamics in the show here so far, which is Mike reacts, as he says. Mike reacts. Mike sees these like really classic movies for the first time, and gets to experience them as we did when we saw them. All these films and stuff that we love. And on top of that, we get to, because we're both music heads and we both sort of we like a lot of the same stuff, but we have some pretty different tastes as well. So we trade albums a lot. We talk about different genres that we're into and stuff like that. And it's been a lot of fun. And Culture Dads has been just very successful so far. And what is this? What episode? I ask this every episode what episode it is. Episode fucking 80.
I think it's
something
76, but I could be wrong.
We're coming up on 100 episodes, right? Yeah. So we're like, for a podcast, that's a good run. Once you crest 50 and you still got plenty of stuff to talk about, you got something good. And we got something good cooking here. So I really love doing podcasts. I really love working with Mr. Mike. You guys Mike is like one of the best dudes there's ever been. Like, this guy is, for real, I'm not kissing his butt. He's an awesome friend. He takes care of people. He's behind the scenes. He's just the fucking man. I would like help this guy bury a body. I'm not even playing.
Well, it may come to that someday if we get big enough. But it's a cool dynamic. I love it, man. It's one of the things that I didn't expect, which in hindsight seems fairly obvious, is that it was just going to be Dave and I just being like, check this out, bro. This is something you've never had before. For me, that's not hard, especially with movies, because like, I'm like a little baby. I haven't seen anything. A lot of times it's like, I watched The Terminator for the first time on one of our episodes.
Hell yeah.
That kind of shit, right? Which is kind of cool because, I'm sure Dave kind of envies that in a way. It's like you get to watch all the classic, a lot of his favorite movies for the first time. I do. And, I get to introduce him to like a lot of the stuff that I like, which is often a lot more obscure. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like watching, it's just like, you're coming into the man cave, you're coming into the Culture Dads den, and like watching us hand each other records. Just be like, yo, check this out. Whatever, right? It's like the kind of shit me and my brother would do when we lived at home with at mom and dad and stuff like that. So it's got a cool vibe. It's kind of got a like, it's Culture Dads. It's got a bit of a family vibe to it. So yeah, I love it.
Oh yeah. And we came into this with the idea of, we wanted to elevate the perception of modern art and modern entertainment, because they're, especially in our side of things and our thing over here, we got a lot of guys that just hate on themselves for being modern and hate everything modern and stuff like that. And me and Mike wanted to say, no, dude, this stuff is special. It's unique to our epoch and we should be proud of it. So, so we get on the horn and we do, so you guys that don't know the back catalog, we've done shows about role-playing games. We've done shows about the electric guitar, on various culinary traditions. We do the big brain stuff with art movements and history and people. We did our catalog is sick. I'm very, very proud of our body of work. So you guys that haven't seen it, you got to go. it's worth it to get signed up to the Gumroad just to go check out the back catalog. Trust me.
Yeah. Like I would say, and this is where I'm not, we can't go on this question forever, and I don't want to, glad hand ourselves too much here, but every single episode that we've done is like still relevant. A lot of podcasts are like, they're talking about the political development of the day, or they're talking about something that's kind of like ephemeral that, only really applies at a certain time. And after that, like nobody cares. Every single Culture Dads episode holds up. Like you could just still listen to it today. Go back to episode 1. That one still fucking slaps. Yeah. And all the other ones do too, because it's a high quality content, but it's also like evergreen material. Like the topics are evergreen. We talk about these movies and everything, or sometimes even just like historical epochs and stuff like that are perpetually of interest to people. So
yeah, big time.
Yeah, I think we've hit on a good formula. So that's the genesis of it anyway.
Oh yeah. Next question.
All right. So next question we got here. I didn't really order them too much, but then, okay. So here's one. Just joined after knowing of you two for a while. I have 2 questions, one for Dave. Okay. I think this one's for you. Is some of the newer Conan books like Blood of the Serpent worth reading / listening to? Do they hold true to Howard's Conan? So that's the first question.
So Blood of the Serpent, who wrote that? Was that Robert Jordan? Let me see.
I think I've heard of that one, actually.
Blood of the Serpent. So Blood of the Serpent, was it Robert Jordan? No, it's Sterling. So Sterling wrote it. I think Sterling. Is Sterling a pen name for Robert Jordan? No, he's not. Never mind. I do know this book. I have had this book. I am a Conan guy. So I have dug into most Conan stuff. Sterling's Conan is sort of true to Conan insofar as it feels like Conan. He does a fairly decent job of emulating the Howardian style, but it don't slap. It ain't there. It ain't it. It's Howard had a lot of times he had very strange kind of supernatural things. He had a lot of like kind of historical, sometimes cultural commentary in there. He had there was bizarre cosmic entities and questions like about time. And Howard was brilliant with weaving these things in. And a lot of the modern, especially Sterling and some of the other guys, Conan becomes, he fights snakes and then he fights zebras and then he fights lions and then he fights mammoths and then he fights, whatever. He just fights jungle animals and girls swoon over him and like, that's it. And, if you've read all of Conan and that's the only thing left, I guess check it out. Like if I had to give it like out of 5, I would say like 2.5 out of 5. I didn't finish it. I didn't think it was great. A lot of people like Lynn Carter and DeCamp and these guys, and they're decent. You know what I mean? A lot of those guys just kind of, they like mush together the Howard stories. Like for example, you go read like Conan the Conqueror, I believe is like Hour of the Dragon or, Phoenix on the Sword, like blended together or whatever. I like to read the OG Howard stuff in the Howard form as it was written. That's my favorite way to read Howard. And I don't think anybody else can write Conan. I've actually contemplated writing a Conan novel because I am a Conan guy. And I feel that I can do a pretty good job of sounding, Howardian without being a knockoff and continuing, the Conan legacy. I actually have been contemplating writing a Son of Conan series with a Son of Conan that's accurate to the lore and features a lot of the kind of elements that Howard would have put in, I believe, or my take on Howardian style of cosmology and stuff like that. The problem with a lot of these guys that write Conan, they were just write basic adventure fiction and just regular ass fantasy, and they don't have a good grasp of Lovecraftian of the Cthulhu mythos. And a lot of people don't know that the world of Hyboria is in the Cthulhu mythos. There are
right?
deep ones.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. Even there's even like some like deities that were invented by Clark Ashton Smith, such as the Frog Lord, what's his name, Tshagwa. Right? Their love, like the Cthulhu mythos. Within the Cthulhu mythos is the Age of Hyboria. So, a lot of the writers don't know that, and they go in, or they don't like that, and they don't want that. So they chop some of that out. Without the Lovecraftian element, there is no Howardian world. So, I feel like I could be a pretty good candidate to write a Son of Conan when the character Conan goes into the public domain. I've been thinking about preemptively writing it for that time, but I don't know, because I sort of want to just preserve Conan how he is, in his, how Howard wrote him. There's plenty of, Howard wrote so much Conan stuff. It's unbelievable. You could take a whole year just reading all of it or more. I've been reading my whole life. I love it. If you have not gone and read the Howardian catalog of Conan in its entirety, or Solomon Kane, or Kull the Conqueror, because Kull and Solomon Kane are also part of the cycles of Hyboria. They are, I believe he implies that they are actually part of the same bloodline. Kull and Conan and Solomon Kane. So read that, and also read, he's got so many other great characters too. Steve Costigan, the fighting sailor. He's got Hardboiled Harrison. He's got a detective. He's got a lot of great horror. Howard wrote so much great horror. Go check out the story Pigeons from Hell, which we published in the first Masters of Horror series from the Bizarchives. A lot of people don't realize he wrote a lot of that stuff. He was just great. So, and don't skip his poetry. You can't understand Howard in his fullest form until you have read his poetry. So that's all the Howard talking I'm going to do. Let's go to the next part.
All right. I'll just sort of bookend that by saying I actually think he's at least as good a poet as he was a prose writer.
Maybe better.
Yeah, his poetry is super dope. All right. So the next question, and this is from that same person, and for both of you guys, who are some of the writers and thinkers that influenced you as far as paganism? Dave, you want to go first?
Oh my God. Writers and thinkers that influenced me as far as paganism.
Do you want me to go and you can think about that for a second?
Yes, please.
All right. So there's quite a few for me. And I won't go on and on about this forever, but I would point to one of the first, not the first, but an interesting and one that guys are not going to be able to guess probably. The Tao Te Ching was very influential on me, actually, in my move toward heathenry. I've talked about this we did an episode called something like Our Journeys into Paganism, when I talked a little bit about the Tao Te Ching and how it fits into my broader spiritual journey. But I would say, as far as like how it informs my view of heathenry, the Tao Te Ching, which is the core text of Taoism, or Taoism sometimes as it's rendered, is that text is one of the most influential books on me ever. And it has influenced my view of heathenry by presenting me with differential ontology. In chapter 2 of the Tao Te Ching, it lays out probably the clearest expression of differential ontology that I've ever heard. And it is, what I love about the Tao Te Ching is it's a mystical text. It's written in what seems like very compressed poetry, like very gnomic, mysterious poetry, where every line has like 100 ways that it can be interpreted. But it is also at the same time one of the most down-to-earth and practical and pragmatic texts that you will find. It's also very short, 81 chapters. You can bang this thing out in one day, but if you really chew on it and digest it, it'll take you a lifetime. And anyway, I found the idea of differential ontology in chapter 2. So probably not many people are going to know what the hell that means. Differential ontology is basically the idea that existence or being is fundamentally about difference. And this completely upends most Western philosophy after the pre-Socratics, certainly from Plato forward to until about the 20th century. For that time, from Plato to, let's just say, the postmodernists, philosophy has considered existence or being in terms of identity. So you are identical with yourself. That is the basic move, the metaphysical move that's the sort of grounding of existence in Western thought. Some of the pre-Socratics, especially Heraclitus, have the opposite view, where it's not identity that's primary in what makes up a thing. It's actually difference. And all this sounds very abstract, but it can be put quite simply by saying that a thing cannot be unless it is in distinction from some other thing. And this is what that chapter in the Tao Te Ching lays out, basically. It says something to the effect of, you can't have high without low. You can't have front without back. You can't have before without after, and so on and so forth. It just lays out the idea that things manifest themselves in terms of opposites and opposition. And this, I won't go into like the metaphysical, implications of all that, but, to sum it all up, basically, it enshrines a dynamic view of the world. It basically enshrines a view of the world as constantly changing, constantly in flux. That the world is fundamentally something that's not ordered and is chaotic, but not chaotic in an evil way. It's just dynamic, right? So that book has been very influential on me from that. Taoism in general and the Tao Te Ching emphasizes nature and natural law. And that has certainly colored my view of heathenry and my view of religion in general. And it also enshrines the idea of the deep, or what is ancient. It's constantly pointing back to what is primordial and what has existed from the very beginning as, what is original and what has essentially given rise to other things. What is the father of other things? Effectively is kind of the master of those things. You will find that in every chapter of the Tao Te Ching. And that, of course, has colored my view. I think guys who read my Substack can understand where that's kind of landed in my own thoughts. So that's the Tao Te Ching. I promised this wouldn't be too long. Nietzsche has been very influential on me. When I first discovered him, I had the same reaction that everybody has, which is that Nietzsche, or everybody who likes Nietzsche anyway, which is that he's basically like he's like the best philosopher ever. He is just this like unbelievable, grenade that gets launched into philosophy and takes all of these like really kind of hokey and like very like overly moralizing philosophers and just like explodes them in a way that's like he's like the philosopher that you can go and bench 225 while reading. He's the philosopher that makes you want to get jacked, right? Like that kind of thing. So Nietzsche, and not just for his vitalist aspects, but also his critiques of Buddhism and Abrahamic religion, his just overall. He is another one of these thinkers that really looks to the ancients. He looks to the what I've come to understand as the pre-axial world, the archaic world, the Bronze Age world, as really the paradigm of what's good. So he has been influential on me. Fustel de Coulanges, the author of The Ancient City, very influential on me. I've talked about this at length on the Substack. I've talked about it, from time to time on Culture Dads. reading The Ancient City was like reading the Tao Te Ching. It was a turning point for me. It introduced me to a world that I always kind of knew in my gut had to exist. But when it was like laid out in front of me, it was just like this master key that made everything click together. And that, you know, all of my intuitions about Christianity and Judaism and even about European paganism itself suddenly made perfect sense. Whereas before it was kind of like they all seemed to have an incomplete picture. They were all doing some things, some of them better than others, some of them, you know, more natively appropriate to our people than others. But when I read about the ancestor cult in the ancient city, that was just I've described it before as a kind of dark matter, something that you know is there, that you have to infer, but you can't observe directly. But when he showed it to me directly, it was just like, okay, well, now it basically explains everything. You know, I know that sounds a little bit ridiculous to say. But that's really the effect that it had on me. I could also cite William Edward Hearn and Henry Sumner Maine, who are doing some of the same things as Coulange. We put out Hearn's book recently, The Indo-European Household, also influential in the same way. I'm going to wrap this up, I promise. Georges Dumézil has been very influential on me, especially his book Mitra Varuna. Indo-European Reconstruction, as I mentioned at the beginning, was something that it's an important thing for me. I've sort of over time come to be like a little bit less gung ho about Indo-European reconstruction. I'm a little bit less optimistic about the prospects of doing that. And I think a lot, especially mythic reconstruction, like comparative myth, there's a lot of stuff that's just complete like hokum out there. There's a lot of like, you know, a lot of people try to reconstruct the Indo-European pantheon in ways that I think they're just totally careless about. They go way too far with it. Yes, a lot can be reconstructed, but a lot of people think that they can completely reconstruct it. I don't think you can even get close to that, but I think there's some important things that you can reconstruct. So he's a little bit less, you know, his star used to be a little bit higher for me, but the book Mitra Varuna is really important because it introduced to me the idea of the Odinic and the Tiric. He doesn't use those terms. He calls them the magician king versus the jurist priest. He doesn't use Odin versus Tyr. Oh, he does, but he's like, well, that's another example of Mitra and Varuna. Those are the two gods in the Indian pantheon, in the Vedic pantheon, that he points to as the paradigm of those two, themselves paradigms. So that's where I got that from, the Odinic and the Tiric. Dumézil, he's very much worth reading. I would say Emile Benavist has been very influential on me. He wrote a book called I have it on my desk here. Indo-European Concepts and Society. He does a linguistic reconstruction of Indo-European cultural institutions. And, you know, a lot of guys in our scene who are like into their reconstruction, into like Indo-European stuff, they focus on the myths, but they completely forget about things like reconstructing laws, reconstructing institutions and family structures and things like that. I think that is far more possible than reconstructing the pantheon and like the mythic cycles and things like that. So he is like one of the best for that. And I guess the last one I would mention is a scholar by the name of Martin Nilsson, Nilsson, who is really, his thing is that cult is really at the bottom of pagan religions. They're more about cult than they are about myth. Although this is not to say that myth is not important, but it is to say that the cultic aspects, he's essentially saying that these religions are orthopraxic, and he gives very, very good scholarly grounded analysis to show that that's the case. So he's been very influential on me as well. I think I'll just leave it at that.
I'll keep it short. Tolkien, Robert E. Howard, various other fantasy writers that introduced me to mythopoetic themes. Then later on, I discovered a man named Stephen McNallen on YouTube. And then I got into, and I'm just going to throw some names out there of people that are walking around right now that are very influential on me. Mark Pereira, William Reeves, Tristan Powers, Tom Rousel, and Mike Maxwell, I think are,
Thank you.
I'm not going to list all the books and everything like that because I'm sure everybody listening has a whole stack of books. But, so getting into fantasy and mythopoetic storytelling, was kind of my way in, and me and some of my buddies got interested into we got kind of called to it. And I've told this story a million times. I'm not going to tell it again, but some of my buddies back in the day in high school when we were teenagers, we used to do little rituals and stuff, like pour out beer and write things in runes on pieces of paper and burn them, and just do little, like, make up our own rituals. We thought we were the only people on earth that still believed, right? And then I went through a pretty cringy atheist fedora phase when that was popping. And then I came out of that and had a kid and got married, and me and my wife converted together, and we lived it. We experienced it and stuff like that. I have read, Nietzsche. I've read Nietzsche. I've read some of the Spoke Zarathustra and like stuff like that. If I had to like pick one guy, like one thinker in history that like really slapped me in the face with pagan thought, Thomas Carlyle's Heroes and Hero Worship.
That one is so good. Yes.
That was a big one for me. That was a really big one for me. So that's my answer. Let's go to the next question.
All right. Yeah. Sorry. We've really been spending a lot of time on these here. All right. So here is one from one of our patrons, actually. Mm-hmm. Opinions on both Asterix comics and Tintin comics.
Okay.
Dave, are you familiar with these?
Yeah, I am.
Nice.
So I did not get into them because they're I believe Tintin is French, and I believe that Asterix it's not British, is it?
I think Asterix is French, and Tintin, I'm not sure, but I think it might be British.
One of them's, I know one of them's French. I'm actually pretty positive that Tintin was originally French. Doesn't matter. I could be wrong. But, we didn't really get them in the States. So they didn't come on the radar. Like once in a while we would get like, Asterix on TV, like the old cartoon. And I had an old Asterix video game, I believe on Nintendo or something like that. And, I didn't. And then like I saw like a movie that I liked when I was a kid. There was an Asterix movie that was cool. Tintin I didn't become aware of until, later in adult life when I started to do deep dives in the comics and history of comics and stuff. So, interesting about Tintin was kind of like it came from a very nationalist Catholic publication back in the day, which people say, the mutants out there have a problem with. They say it's problematic and all that kind of stuff. But, hey, I can't give you too much more beyond that. I think that they're wholesome, and I think that they have good storytelling in them. I think Asterix is very funny and has a lot of cultural stuff, and it probably hits a little harder for people that are British or are French or are European than it does for me, because there's a lot of like inside jokes and stuff about, the Irish and, the Danes and stuff like that that kind of go over my head.
Yeah. Guys are correcting us in the chat here. Okay, so Asterix is French and Tintin is Belgian.
Oh,
so yeah, definitely the European vibe is very clear in these. So I asked the person who asked the question, because I didn't know if Dave was going to be familiar with these, and I am not at all familiar with these. So I asked him to elaborate on like what he thought was cool about them. And so I'm just going to read that here. So I think they're interesting for a couple of reasons and offer some interesting avenues to get our thoughts. That is Dave and I. I would argue that comic books are largely an American-dominated art form, and in light of Marvel insanity, have a negative view from most. But Asterix and Tintin are uniquely European creations. So it would be interesting to remind and talk about how as a medium it spans more than the gross stuff of what we see now. Also, Asterix in particular is this kind of very based, latent, folkish story. In the adventures they have, they travel around Europe to meet different tribes of different modern-day countries. And to be honest, the stereotypes on display are, well, pretty accurate. They have a French tint, of course, which is also interesting. I don't know of other countries' views being disseminated in quite this way. One funny example of Asterix in Britain is making jokes about the Scots being tight-fisted. This is written in 1966. And there are a bunch of other jokes and banter all around the differences of peoples in this way. I recall some even saying Asterix's impact was such that it kept alive the image of the Gauls in a positive light versus the Romans. And so this role of myth-making via modern mediums is an interesting one. That is very interesting, actually. Maybe we should do an episode on one of these.
Yeah.
Tintin, I think, is interesting because, again, comic book, but all too human, whereas we are dominated by the superhero fantastical, of which both British and American comics kind of move towards. Again, Tintin is kind of steeped in this European and liberal-centric outlook of his investigations around the world, but just so different to what we see from the medium as a whole. I'd throw out Babar the elephant as well, completely out of fashion as it was kind of used and about French colonialism, and that was the very myth of civilizing power of Western ideas. So, yeah, those are very interesting thoughts.
I would push back a little bit on the idea that comic books are purely an American thing. This would be the opinion of somebody that, and I'm not beating anybody up. I'm not saying, whatever, you are what you are and you're exposed to what you're exposed to. But, this would be like kind of the view of somebody that didn't really grow up with comics, somebody that, isn't really aware of the history of it and how far spread they were and stuff like that, and only really associated with cape shit. So, France, for example, had a humongous comic. They still do a humongous comic culture. Heavy Metal magazine comes from France. It was called Metal Hurland.
That's right. You're right.
Perry Rodin came from Germany, right? These and there's so many British ones as well. The idea that the Marvelization, that Marvel dominates the medium of comics, I just reject that with my whole body. It's a very recent thing, and in fact, superheroes only really kind of are like a flash in the pan. They were only really popular during, I guess you could call it the Silver Age of comics. And then they got revitalized in the 80s and 90s with some of the darker stuff. And then now kind of propped up by Hollywood ESG bucks. So the superhero in and of itself is sort of a gimmick that kind of comes and goes and rises because it is a gimmick. It's a flash in the pan, and they have to keep reinventing it and all astroturfing it for people to like it. And here's a fun fact. Marvel was in the toilet, and in the 70s, a guy named Roy the Boy Thomas went to Stan Lee and said, I want to do a Conan the Barbarian comic. And Stan Lee loved his superheroes, and he loved his apple pie, freaking straight lace, goody two shoes, Mary Sue, Gary Stu superheroes. And he didn't want to do grim and gritty, comics about muscle bound barbarians that lay pipe and slaughter monsters and do all that kind of shit. He didn't want to do that. Well, they were in the tubes and they took a long shot, and Conan put Marvel on his back and saved them from ultimate destruction. So Savage Sword of Conan saved Marvel Comics. Fantasy comics, horror comics have always been kind of the big dogs. Horror comics, if you guys remember, things like Tales from the Crypt, creepy comics, eerie comics, so on and so forth. That was the big dog, right? That for years and years. EC Comics was the big dog for years and years and years. So I would argue that superheroes are like superhero comics are just a small fry. And really, when we're talking about the style of comics and the genres that dominated the comic format, we're talking horror, we're talking fantasy, we're talking science fiction, period, in my opinion.
Yeah, and even the guy who invented comic books, and Dave did a really good historical dive on this guy, Rodolphe Topfer. I mean, he was a Swiss guy. We did a whole episode. I think it was where Dave did that historical background. We did a whole episode on Jodorowsky, who is an Argentinian, did a comic book series that we did a whole episode on. So yeah, there's lots of international influence there in comics and everything like that.
Yeah, if you question like comic books and you're like want to see what their value is and you want to see like what comic books can do and kind of at their height, we did a whole show about it. Meta Barons. Read Meta Barons, the first cycle. I guarantee you, after you finish that, you will have a whole new appreciation for the format. Let's keep it cooking. We're coming up on an hour and we all got 3 questions in.
I know. Shit.
Let's do them all, though. I got time. Let's do them all.
All right. So the next question is, how do dads in a polycule relationship cope with never getting laid and raising everyone else's kid?
What the hell does that mean?
It's just a joke question here. I'll read it again. How do dads in a polycule relationship cope with never getting laid and raising everyone else's kid? It's a what is it? Longhouse situation, I guess.
What is
how do those guys?
Polycule?
I'm guessing that it's a what is it? Polygynous relationship or whatever. It was just a silly question. So
it's weird.
All right, next one. Do you guys listen to country music, and would you consider doing an episode on it?
Sure, I'd love to.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. In fact, I noted that down when I got that question. I've got a little notepad file full of episode ideas. They keep cooking, man. We never run out of shit to talk about. So that's a good one.
I love Hank Jr. Bocephus is my dude.
Yeah. No, look, I don't listen to country music apart from a little. I love Lead Belly. I will check Lead Belly anytime, any day. But country music is not really my thing. But then again, Culture Dads has very often been about encountering what's not my thing. I mean, Dave and I are in some ways kind of the same guy. Like, we see eye to eye on a lot of shit aesthetically, but not everything, right? I like weird stuff because I'm super picky. I'm super picky with my like culinary tastes too, but in kind of an opposite way. I'm like ultra conservative or Tyrrhic in my food choices. Like, I like the stuff that everybody else likes. I don't like unusual things very much, but I'm very Odinic in my music tastes. Like I like stuff that's really daring or weird or off the beaten path. But in terms of music, I will listen to anything, but what I really jam with is like just a handful of things. Like there's only probably about like 3 or 4 genres where I'm like, that's my shit, bro. And country is just not one of them, which is weird because I actually love folk culture. It's hard to describe what it is about country that kind of doesn't do it for me. I think it's the blues influence, but we could table that discussion for a dedicated episode. I think that's a good idea. But I can get down with like the best of just about any genre. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to jam with some of the best country music, country and Western music ever. I know there's some good stuff out there. So yeah, bottom line, we should totally do an episode on that.
Hell yeah. Next question.
All right, next one. The art of storytelling with kids, ad-libbing written books, and reacting to children's input, making them an active participant in the story. How such ad-libbing increases brain power through ad-libbing and is deeply rooted in our ancient traditions. So, not really a question, but what do we think about that? About improvising stories with kids, basically.
I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Big time.
There was like one time. So last Christmas, I went back to Canada for Christmas vacation. And when you fly from Australia to Canada, it is a long flight. Let me tell you, especially with young kids. You got to find shit for them to do. It's going to take you like 15 hours. Like, what the fuck are you going to do for 15 hours? Like sitting down with young kids. Well, there was one of the things that we found, one of many things that we found to do was, my daughter was like, Dad, tell me a story. I'm like, all right, I've read a few stories in my time. So I recited Beowulf from the beginning as detailed as possible as I could. And I didn't leave anything out. I mean, I left the battle scenes out and stuff like that. I didn't describe any of the gore. Well, that's not true. You know, we went into the whole like ripping Grendel's arm off thing and all of that stuff. But I didn't hold anything back. But I probably spent, you know, a good 20 or 30 minutes just going through Beowulf by memory with her, which is impressive for me because my memory is fucking garbage. But I know that story pretty well, so I can go through that. And at the end of it, she was just like, Dad, I love it. She loves Beowulf, man. I have this like box set of like adventure stories retold for children. I would say probably in the 8 to 10-year-old range in terms of like reading level, maybe a little younger, 8 years old or so. She's younger than that. So that was like, and Beowulf is among those. It's in that box set, you know. And very often, you know, when it's at the end of the night, we always do story time. This is a tradition. I've talked about this on a couple of episodes. We always read a story before bedtime, you know, whether the kids have been good or bad, whatever it is. That is just something that happens every night. So, you know, we alternate, like, you know, each of the kids will pick, they get their chance to pick a story. We kind of rotate. And very often they'll just like go up to the bookshelf, climb up on the chair, and they'll just like pull that box set down. And they know which color of spine is Beowulf. So they're just like instantly, you know, 9 times out of 10, they'll just pull Beowulf out. And they'll be like, let's read this, Dad. And there's like 4 chapters. Really, like, you can't really read more than 1 chapter a night to them because it's just, you know, it's long enough. 1 chapter is long enough for a storytelling session for kids. So we had to go through it over 4 or 5 nights or something like that. They love Beowulf. They know the story very well. Actually, that children's retelling, I think quite wisely, doesn't tell the second half of the story where Beowulf's old and he goes to slay the dragon. It just tells the Grendel story. But they love it. And one cool thing that happened was when we went back to Canada, I don't know how or why this happened, but my parents just happened to ask my daughter to tell them a story, or like, you know, what did you guys do on the plane, or like whatever. There was like some opportunity where she had the chance to recount Beowulf to my parents. And I gotta say, man, this was like one of my proudest moments as a dad. She fucking nailed it. She nailed it. I mean, it was a little distorted, you know, told through the perspective of, you know, a young child, but she hit all the main points. The narrative totally made sense. And at the end of it, they were like, shit, standing ovation. That was fucking cool. Like, and it took her about 5 minutes to unfold this tale. So it's important. Telling your kids stories is really important. Maintaining oral tradition is really important. Dave is a much better storyteller than I am, but I can kind of do it. So I try to. I make the effort to, like, you know, get my kids excited about that sort of thing. It's very important. And people who can tell a story, people who are able to do that, they have a real social advantage over other people. If you can tell a story, then you can nail a job interview, you can make friends. It's actually quite an important skill to have. So it's something that you should cultivate in yourself. And if you're a dad, you should definitely cultivate it in your kids too. Yeah, I agree with all that. I like it. For sure. All right, next question. When are Culture Dads going to do an episode on Genesis, the band? We could do that. Absolutely. I know exactly who said that. So we could do an episode on Genesis. If you're a big fan of Genesis, I am
I am a Phil Collins respecter. So we can. I know they had another. Who's the other guy that was in there? Not Phil Collins. There's another guy that's known for being from
Peter Gabriel.
Peter Gabriel. I've not done a Peter Gabriel deep dive. I only know some of Phil's songs. So we could do it. I know they're a very influential band. They got tons and tons of songs. That Phil Collins guy, he could. Oh my God, that guy has songs.
Yeah, he's good, man. He's a good songwriter. I like this comment from Jack Peregrine. My favorite moments are Mike makes Dave listen to avant-garde music he hates. Look, hey, I can bring that shit, bro. We could do that. We could do more episodes.
Yeah. I tried though. I give everything a fair shake, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, I can see why he gets into this and stuff. But there is sometimes I'm like, dude, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, those are actually the funniest times. It's great, man. But regarding Genesis, I'm a big prog rock guy. Well, I'm a pretty big prog rock guy. I went through a phase where I was really into that stuff. Genesis was kind of like, I never really, I think, gave them much of a chance. I probably should have. But it'd be great to do an episode on that. I had a friend who was a huge Genesis fan. I must say, I appreciate Phil Collins as a pop songwriter. I think that guy's got like some of the best songwriting chops. Like I'm a weird music guy, obviously, if I'm introducing Dave to like Nurse with Wound and Current 93 and shit like that. I am a weird music guy for sure, but I love good pop music. Like, you know, and now I have it sort of foisted upon me no matter what, because I've got young kids and they listen to pop. They love pop music. So I got to listen to what's current to some degree. But Phil Collins is really high quality. He's a good songwriter. I can really appreciate like very simple music. That's some of my favorite stuff. You know, as guys know, I'm a big Nirvana fan. It's very simple. I can appreciate pop music. And I think Phil, you know, I'm into that. So
yeah. Phil fucks.
He does. Yes. Okay. Next question. My viewpoints changed late into my marriage with 4 kids, from typical libertarian to WN. I'm still a Christian, but struggling with that too. Can't stand going to church anymore. My wife senses my change, but I have to fake it every day because I fear breaking up my family over my views. I drop occasional red pills to the wife and kids, and they get it sometimes, but it's just crumbs. Things would be different if I started out this way before marriage and kids, but I'm making a full 180 on everyone, basically. What would you do if you woke up in this situation one day?
Oh, man. So, this is...
We're gonna get some tough questions in this AMA.
Yeah, we got some ones that are coming from the heart with some folks.
Yeah.
So, bro, I would sit down. The thing is, it's hard for me to answer this question because I don't know where your wife's at. You know what I mean? I don't know where she's at as far as her worldview. I don't know where was she libertarian with you before you started going the other way, or is she like some sort of something else? Like, I don't know where she's at. So, and I don't know her personality, so I can't really tell you how to approach it. Is she the kind of girl that you can sit down and have a conversation with? Is she the kind of girl that is going to reject this, or is she the kind of girl that over time will change? And how old are your kids? You know what I mean? If your kids are little kids, then you can teach them the proper worldview. But until like they're, you know, if they're like teenagers and all this kind of stuff, and all of a sudden you do this 180, that's a little bit of a tougher situation. I would say, do not ever sacrifice the integrity and togetherness of your family for political views. Ever, 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 ever. Your love for your wife matters more than what is correct in the abstract, or what you perceive to be correct in the abstract. And you being a present father is far more important than that too. You have to be there. You're a dad. You made an oath. You are sworn to that. And if that means that you don't talk about politics for the rest of your life, then that's what that means. That's what I have to say about that. As far as the crisis of faith, you know, it's hard for me to talk to. So it's hard for me to say what I want to say and what I believe in my heart without upsetting our Christian friends. You guys know me. I was like the first, I don't want to say the first, but I'm one of the OG pagan guys out here that reached out a hand in friendship and said, let's stop fucking fighting. It's stupid as hell. If we want to have debates, we can have debates. You know, let's come together and write books. Let's come together and do business. Let's be friends. Right. Because here's the deal. If you meet like a based Christian guy and you're like me and you're a based pagan guy, if you just run into each other in a workplace, you guys are going to be boys. You're just going to be excited to talk that somebody else knows about theology that you can talk to in an honest way. So it's like, I'm not that guy that wants to create a big fight. But in my heart of hearts, I am a believer. I'm an Orthodox heathen. I believe that in my heart of hearts, and I'm sorry, guys, and I'm sure you believe this about me too, but I think that all of you should come home to the true ancestral faith for our people. And I think that you should do that. And I would like to see that. And I believe that I know that is the best path. I'm not going to come into your house and force you to do it. I'm not going to bully you into it. You know, I would, if you are really a genuine Christian, then be a genuine Christian and just, I would rather have your authentic self. I understand it's hard to change what you already believe. And if that's what you believe, that's what you believe. And, you know, in my view, regardless of what you think you believe, we're going to end up in the same place when we die anyways. So it doesn't really do me any good to go converting you. It's not in our faith. It's not something that I'm interested in doing. I would rather be friends with you and do good business and make money and create beautiful art and stuff like that. Right. So as far as this guy goes with his crisis of faith, I'm going to give him the answer that's in my heart. I think that you should find a local kindred, a good one, and go to bloat and become a heathen.
Yeah, I guess I would echo Dave's sentiments on the theology there for sure. I think he said everything that I would want to say very well. With the politics, I guess my feeling that's in my heart on that is that politics is not nearly as important as family or religion, of course. But politics is it is downstream of morality. Politics is really sort of the practical application of morality when other people get involved. It's how you live with other people, right? Like it's very simply, politics etymologically just means living with other people in a city. How are you going to manage that? Well, what drives people to change their politics is that they have had a change of heart morally. And that's very serious. That's much more serious than politics. Yeah. Somebody who has had a political change has had a sea change in their heart, in their gut, in their intuition about what is right. And I think it's impossible really to separate questions of politics and morality and ultimately religion. I think that those things are all sort of one thing. Now, I don't think that politics should dictate to religion. I think it's the other way around. I think that the change of heart, the political change, is evidence of a change further upstream. Maybe that's a moral change. Maybe it is a religious change, but it is a change in some way that is much more deep than just the politics. The politics is a symptom of something much deeper, I would say. And as a result, I don't think it's going to be possible to conceal that.
Okay.
Going in the long term, I think probably the important thing to do is to do some real soul searching about what it is that has made you change your mind on these matters. And that you mentioned that she has picked up on something. She senses this change. You're not going to be able to fake that forever. There is going to come a point where a conversation needs to be had. And my feeling is that as long as you've got your what's in your heart sorted out, as long as you know what you believe, as long as you know what imperatives are driving you towards this change, as long as you've worked it out, basically, that this is indeed real, that the sooner that conversation happens, the better. Because if it doesn't happen soon enough, she is going to get weird vibes. She's going to feel like something's wrong and that you're not telling her.
Yeah.
So I think that this is a conversation that needs to be had. And that's hard. Sometimes these things, don't work out. I mean, let's just to be blunt about it. But I think that the earlier that conversation happens, as long as it's real, as long as you know for sure, the earlier that conversation happens, the more likely it is to work out. That's just my feeling on the matter. For what it's worth.
I like Mike's answer. I like his answer a little better.
So, all right, next question here. I am actually going to defer that question because it's another heavy one. All right, we'll come back to it. Next question. Have you guys done a deep dive into virtual reality? It has the weird quality of adding a positive side to hyperreality. It engages your body more, but accentuates the negatives. More immersion equals more fishbowl layers. So its good/bad potential reaches towards farther extremes. Dave, do you have any thoughts on virtual reality?
Can you read it again? I zoned out the last part of it.
Okay.
So,
have you guys done a deep dive into virtual reality? It has the weird quality of adding a positive side to hyperreality. And he says the positive side is it engages your body more. But it accentuates the negative side of hyperreality.
Okay.
That is, more immersion means more fishbowl layers. So how do we weigh up the good and bad in virtual reality?
So he's talking about actual VR headsets and shit.
Yeah.
Oh man. So I actually don't think that I think that VR headset, like VR gaming and VR movie viewing and VR everything, is going to become more and more popular as the technology increases and gets better with those new Apple glasses. And it's just going to keep getting better and better until you have a little thing that just shoots a projection into your retinas or something like that, right? It's going to keep getting better and better. I've read things about they're creating VR headsets that create false smells and vibrations. They already have weird porn stuff where, you put your schwanz in the thing and it does, you guys know what I'm saying. So as of right now, it's still kind of jalopy and big and stuck in the same kind of technology that we've had for like over a decade. It's been looking the same. But once that advances, we're going to see an explosion in VR gaming and VR everything, right? Not just gaming, but and this is going to be a time where gaming and entertainment and stuff like that kind of melt together more so than we've seen so far. And this is already sort of happening, right? This has already sort of happened in the past with various types of, different, I guess you could say, medium blending or medium jamming, right? We have animated comics and freaking, movie games and choose your own adventure story, like what are they called? The story games. You guys know what I'm talking about. So this kind of stuff is already kind of forming these, and this is something that has happened forever and ever. Think about it like this. The first silent films had like a string band, like an orchestra in the theater. This combined music with moving pictures and had a soundtrack. That was a blending of two art forms to create a kind of hybrid entertainment that we take for granted now, right? We take that for granted. It's like, to think that there was once upon a time where watching a film with sound was like, oh my God, they combined these things. That's coming, right? That's coming. Eventually there will be some sort of weird hybrid between gaming and film and socialization and social media. It's all going to come together, and it's going to come together in a way that's VR. So what's the positive side of it is you are good. It's going to be more physical. You're going to move around. There's already people saying that VR gaming is better for you because you move around, you get great workouts. There's like a boxing game that a lot of people recommend. There's like a pretty cool looking sword fighting game, and some of these games are really, really looking cool in the VR. I haven't done them yet. The spooky part of the VR is going to be like pornography, right? It's the immersion into pornography is not going to help what we have now, the porn addicted people, and honestly lonely, love starved young men who are having no luck in the dating scene. I'm sure somebody listening knows what I'm talking about. I know tons of young men like this, and there's nothing at all wrong with them, but because of the way that the dating scene, hypergamy, and the technosphere are, they are chronically lonely. I'm not calling them incels or anything like that, but they are chronically lonely and have, they missed the last chopper out of Nam when it came to the dating scene. So these young men who are the ones that get addicted to pornography are going to be the ones that are going to be subject to VR virtual, like hyper pornography. And this hyper pornography is going to be even worse. And this is already happening. This is something that's going on in Japan where they have these like girlfriend simulators, and these girlfriend simulators have a 3D girlfriend, and you can go on dates with her, and she has all this stuff, and you can take her clothes off and have sex with her and all this kind of stuff. This is going to become more and more realistic with language models, with vocalization, like the AI voice replication, and the realistic style of graphics that are coming out with stuff like look at the Unreal Engine 5 and the kind of realistic graphics that's coming out with. So imagine lonely ass young men who are going to start falling in love with virtual girlfriends that are literally programmed to stimulate them in every way psychologically that they are looking for, right? So it is, and it's going to be bad because these virtual girlfriends are going to be better than real girlfriends. They are going to say everything that you want to hear. They are going to be interested in you, and they're not going to have any of the flaws that real women have, and they're going to be the perfect girlfriend. And along with the VR, the hyper immersive style of this stuff is going to be like I mentioned, I'm not trying to be crass or whatever, but let's be honest, we're talking about it here. We're grown ups. Like this stuff that stimulates your private parts and goes along with the game or the thing that you're going is going to feel more real than real. It's going to be really, really damaging. And if we think porn addiction is a problem now, wait until there are unique, one-of-a-kind virtual AI girlfriends that guys come home from work to, and they just turn on their VR headset and have dinner with them and go to the beach with them and fall in love with them and drive around towns with them in a car that they would never be able to afford in real life. And this girl swoons over them and loves them and gives them everything that they can't get in real life that's not available to them. This is going to be a humongous problem. And the first guys, the first people, the first companies that come out with that thing in its perfect form are going to become so rich beyond anything that we've ever seen before. It's going to completely destroy the pornography industry because a lot of young men aren't really just looking to satisfy their carnal desires. Young men now are looking to satisfy their emotional needs, which are not being met. And that's, your emotional needs. We could say that that's a more wholesome thing than your carnal needs, but it's also a far more dangerous thing. So, it's a spooky thing, VR. It's a spooky thing, VR. Now, talking about purely gaming and entertainment, it's going to be pretty cool to be able to put on a VR headset and be transported into a movie theater with a bunch of your buddies from around the world, and you can sit and watch and talk during whatever movie you watch. And it's going to be pretty fucking cool to put these VR headsets on and literally walk through a fantasy world with a real looking sword slaying real looking monsters. That's going to be dope, right? It's already there and it already looks dope. So, yes, it's going to become more physical. You're not going to be a couch potato, like drooling, holding a controller in your hand. But then again, it has a it's like anything with technology, dude. It's a double-edged sword.
What you're saying is it's like the heart of darkness, but it also has this like, come on in. It's just a big party side to it. I think, yeah. I think that the in the question, the person who asked it mentioned hyperreality. And I think that was really apt, not just because of it's called virtual reality, but because this is an extension. Virtual reality is an extension of something that's been going on for a very long time, at least since the advent of postmodernism, which is the entanglement of reality and fiction. Arguably, this has ancient roots, but just confining it to the modern era here. Social media is a kind of virtual reality. We are facing a lot of the same issues with guys growing up being socialized on Facebook and Telegram and Twitter that were not issues when I grew up before the internet, right? I was well and truly on my way to maturity when the internet actually dropped. Yeah. So I remember that world, and it is a very different world now. And in some ways, it's a better world because, of course, the internet and social media has yielded what we're doing right now. And I think what we're doing right now is like infinitely more cool than a lot of the social currents that were going on, in the 80s and 90s, right? Like the 90s was the end of history when everything just seemed like it was just going to be boredom for the rest of time. You know what I mean? And that liberalism had won. Like what a absolutely gray horizon it was to look upon at that time. Well, now social media has inaugurated, our thing, our political thing, and what we're doing, our cultural thing, our scene, everything like that's really cool. I think that's great. But at the same time, it has also really made guys kind of like socially idiotic in ways that are just, like I couldn't have even fathomed this back in the day. So it is very much a double-edged sword to a degree that, I think honestly we're looking at an Eloi Morlock situation going, into the distant future, centuries into the future, where you will have a kind of bifurcation of like one class of people or one demographic of people who are pretty resistant to this kind of stuff, that don't really care about social media and don't care about like virtual reality and don't care about, the machine, the mechanurge, so to speak, and are just kind of happy to just be, essentially the same as what their grandparents were or great grandparents and, people before the advent of, mass media. There's still lots of people in the world like that. There's going to be those people. And then there's going to be the people who are hyper connected, who like they just live in the metaverse and that's all they know. And I think that the former is ultimately going to win the demographic battle for reasons that I hope are pretty obvious. So I think what you're going to have is almost in a way a kind of like evolutionary, a fork in the road kind of thing. And that one side is going to lead to extinction effectively, but at the same time also probably lead to some possibilities that will lay the groundwork for the revitalization of the other fork, the other path in that fork. So it's not like it's a bad thing. It's not like it's like we should just reject it and like only go in the one direction. I think that they both have potential. And I'm not just talking about virtual reality, but I'm talking about hyper reality in general here. We did an episode on postmodernism where some of these thoughts are a little bit more laid out and everything. I think that was really one of our key episodes because it's such an important thing. But yes, I think that there are long-term implications that we have only just begun to sort of think about. So yeah, it's a good question. All right, so we're going to move on to another question here. Now, I have kind of screwed something up. We got 8 questions from one of our patrons. Dave, I think you can guess who it was. And I probably should have paced them throughout this episode. I probably should have started with one. But okay, we're going to start with the first of his questions. So here we go. If you could outline and comment on the Spartan cuck thing, why it's likely to be real, and how this should impact our evaluations of the Spartans, such as in Culture, like 300 or Halo, is there any danger to laconophilia, that is, Sparta being Sparta enjoyers? So for those who are not familiar with what he's talking about, the Spartans had an institution where if a man and wife couple was unable to produce sons, or because this happened in the ancient world, there's laws and provisions in every Indo-European culture of like what happens when the pairing, when the man and wife couple is unable to have children. Because for these people, that was like a big problem. It was a theological problem, because they practiced the ancestor cult, and producing heirs was key to essentially your salvation in the other world. If that didn't happen, that was a disaster. It wasn't just like you're lonely for the rest of your life. It was like you're a hungry ghost forever. Big problem. So they had laws. Every Indo-European culture had laws, and we can reconstruct some of them back to the steppe, back to the Ur-Heimat. So this is something that these people dealt with, childlessness, essentially. For the Spartans, they had a very interesting solution to this problem, which is that it was essentially state-enforced cuckery, where they would, take the man and couple them with another woman, or the woman with another man, especially because the Spartans themselves were they were such a militaristic society. They just wanted soldiers, as many of them as possible. And so if this wasn't happening within a family, they would essentially pair the wife with the biggest Chad they could and just crank out more soldier babies. You know what I mean? So this is a real thing in Greek culture, in Spartan culture anyway. And what is being asked here is it likely to be real? And does this change our views on how we evaluate the Spartans?
No, that's how they did things.
Yeah. Dave, do you want to expand on that, or?
No, I just, that's how they did, that's how they did it. And we got to understand that in the ancient world, they had in some ways, they had a different morality than us. They had different circumstances than us. They had different, they just had it was different, right? It was the same in a lot of ways, but it was also different. And sometimes some of their practices, they would look at some of our practices and think we're weird, right?
Well, and they would be right about that.
And they would be right about that. But some of those people did some weird stuff to us too. It's like, like that. And fuck you, dude. I'll just not have kids, scumbag, or I'll adopt. You ain't banging my wife. That ain't happening.
Yeah.
But you know what? In Sparta, Sparta does Sparta. That's all I got to say about that. But it doesn't affect my view of them because I don't moralize them from my morality. You know what I mean? Because regardless of how much of a folkish worldview that I have, I'm still a modern guy, and I'm still gonna, stomp your teeth out of your skull if you try to put a hand on my wife. I don't care if I'm shooting blanks or not. I'll shoot blanks my whole life into her. You ain't touching her.
Yeah. No, I think that gets at something that actually is quite close to the bottom of what's in our worldview as people who are folkish, which is that moral particularism is kind of the overarching principle, right? Where there is no neutral ground for us to be able to evaluate another culture and to say objectively they are worse and we are better, or vice versa. Now, we can, of course, evaluate it from within our own culture. We can say, like, that looks stupid to us. That looks insane. Like, we would never accept something like that. But to say that we just do not have the ability to say that, like, there is some like abstract, detached, non-contextual way of evaluating that, well, that just doesn't make sense within our worldview. I'm not going to say it doesn't make sense, period, because that would be kind of contradictory. It's just not something that we, especially in our ancestral worldview, going back to like pre-Christian times especially, that would not have made sense. Now, that is not to say that we can't judge them from within our own frame. Within our own frame, that's really, really weird. Spartan polygamy is kind of weird. And in fact, Sparta itself is kind of weird within the context of Indo-European societies. They are kind of like the ancient Greek version of like Scotland or something. They are like this extremely hardy, they were for a very long time anyway, this extremely hardy and backward people. They are kind of like an archaic survival. I can say this as somebody who is from Scottish extraction largely. Scotland was really kind of like this, barbaric frontier society on the edge of like the English, who were themselves, at least, through a lot of the interactions of the history of interaction with Scotland, like England was kind of like the more developed and civilized society or whatever. But once Scotland kind of started down the path of revolution, they really got going very fast. I mean, look at where they are right now, with a law having been passed in the last year or so that you're not even allowed to, you're not even allowed to speak ill of certain peoples within your own house. That is against the law, not just in public. Like, yeah. So like they've fallen really fast. And you could say the same thing about the Swedes or like Scandinavians in general. These are people who used to be the most fearsome barbarians imaginable, and now they are very sort of mild-mannered people. This has changed tremendously over a short period of time. And Sparta, while it was always a militaristic society, underwent its revolutions very, very quickly in ways that are quite similar. Like, they were also in some ways kind of like archaic survival within Greece of like much earlier cultural mores. But yes, so it seems weird. It seems weird that they would employ polygamy, because polygamy is not traditional within the context of Indo-European society. It sticks out. There's something wrong there. Something they've taken a wrong turn in the context of Indo-European society. That is, they've deviated from the origin. So it's almost hard to believe that something like that would have happened, but I generally don't like questioning the primary sources too much. Like, I can't disagree with Polybius, who tells us this, because once you start questioning the primary sources too much, you just end up like retconning history as whatever you think it should have been. But it doesn't make sense, I guess is what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense, given the familial and heroic cults that were part of the wider Greek culture, that this, quasi-polygamy would have been the case. I suspect most of this business is an innovation, and it wasn't present in Doric peoples until fairly late. You probably had the original Genos-based cults, that is like the clan-based cults that were ellipsed by a kind of proto-fascism. You could compare the revolution that Sparta underwent, sort of against this like cult, clan-based system, with the way that the Italian fascists reacted to Cosa Nostra. So they became a militaristic society fairly quickly, tried to do away with all these intermediaries and clans and stuff like that. I think that's what was driving Sparta to like introduce these weird innovations. But so I guess what I'm saying here is that I think that this institution that was described as, institutional cuckery or whatever is something that was brought in fairly late. I don't think it was with them from the beginning. So I'm going to ask another one of this patron's questions because we've got lots of them. So the next question is, what do you think about the rise of MASC, M-A-S-C-F-A-S-C, like masculine fascism, I suppose? This is what he calls the phenomenon associated with Hamza Ahmed and other creators piggybacking off the likes of Andrew Tate and the modern Stoic movement. What do we think about this? While kind of being its own thing, much stronger into fatherhood. Some people seem to be saying that some sort of authoritarian consciousness is rising, reflected in more and more normal teenage boys posting things like Arno Brecker memes and such. How do you respond to this MASC thing, masculine fascism, I suppose? How should a focused approach and interface with it?
I've never heard of this before.
I think he's just talking in general about like the sort of like Andrew Tate phenomenon of like get bitches, get money and bitches kind of thing. Like, that, like, guys just like trying to be these like, mini authoritarians or whatever, like Stalins and whatever, like building their own sort of like manor buns, but like irreligious manor buns of just like hedonism and stuff. I think that's what he's talking about.
I mean, I think some of those guys have some good things to say, but overall, I do think that they're a pretty subversive force that are pushing young men further away from where they need to be, right? You're not going to you're not going to have a fulfilling life if, you just LARP as this. A lot of these guys are fucking snake oil salesmen. Like, let's talk about, I don't know. I don't want to get into I don't want to go into naming names and who's right and who's wrong and et cetera, et cetera. But
again, we've done an episode we did an episode on Andrew Tate, right? Yeah. A lot of the stuff we talk about. So sorry.
No, you're good. I don't know. It's just, there's a trend where every single one of these so-called masculine mentors, these gurus, push men away from fatherhood. It's just like fucking all of them. And the thing is that they make a lot of money from young men who don't spend their money on children and don't spend their money on wives and building houses and building households and stuff like that. They want young single men that have a lot of expendable income to pay for their overpriced books and their paywalls and nothing against paywalls and getting money. We got a paywall. I respect, you gotta make something, right? You can't, it's gotta be able to keep the lights on. And I'm not against anybody getting wealthy doing these things, but, the bottom line is these guys, they make a lot of money from young men that don't have children. And I'm not saying that that's their whole scam or whatever, but, it just seems like it's more liberalism, just wearing a different costume, pushing them into the same results, which is pursue something that is materialistic, pursue things that are not fulfilling, and unfortunately, it's like this whole thing that like Andrew Tate, for example. Whether you like Andrew Tate or not, he's a very capable, talented, intelligent guy. He's got it going on. He was adept at becoming who he is. He's a champion kickboxer. He's a very slick businessman. XYZ could say that he's a piece of shit. Maybe he is a piece of shit. But at the end of the day, there can only be one Andrew Tate. And what Andrew Tate is telling all these young men is that they all can be Andrew Tate or some lesser form of Andrew Tate, and they can't. So what he's doing, and not just him, I'm not going to name any other, but there's a couple guys that are a little bit closer to where our location is in the Necromunda that I believe push a similar message and have a beef with, we said that remember our video, the trad LARP video? We had guys calling us male moms and shit like that, saying that what we're pushing is
people did not like that video.
Well, guess what, jerk off? Come tell me, call me a male mom to my face, scumbag. Yeah. See what happens. But here's the deal: is that these supposed male moms are called the fucking paterfamilias, and every great civilization ever in history was built off of a hierarchy of family fathers. So anything that is anti-dad, I wipe my entire ass with and I throw it in the trash. And I consider it snake oil.
Yeah, which it is, which it absolutely is. So this like Andrew Tate thing or whatever, let's just say the manosphere in general, and the, also what was mentioned in this, this question was the modern Stoic movement, which is something that's perhaps a little bit more positive. I have criticisms of Stoicism, but that's another story. I think what you're seeing here is a distorted and quasi-unhealthy version of the pendulum swinging back after a very long time of swinging in itself a very unhealthy direction. It's a reaction against poison, basically. Yeah. I really, what I'm trying to say here is what you're seeing is the pendulum swinging back towards vitalism. Vitalism is coming back, and that's undeniable, and it's good. And these things, whether it's Bronze Age pervert, whether it's Andrew Tate, whether it's the Stoic movement and things like that, these are very flawed but very good developments. They're positive developments that are not there yet. They're these incoherent things that are essentially moving towards folkishness, really. There was a couple of times recently, like people have forwarded, I've seen on some Telegram channels that Nick Fuentes answered a couple of questions on a couple of occasions that are something to the effect of, don't you think muscular Christianity is based? That's the question. And his answer was really interesting. It was basically like, no, I don't think it's based. Then the take is basically that if you need a vitalist religion, then it just means you as a people are like weak and cucked and whatever. Now, I don't think that's a serious answer, but my thoughts about the answer are not my point. Him just getting this question is evidence of a broader trend. Yeah. Even Christianity, the religion of turn the other cheek, love thy neighbor, the meek shall inherit the earth, and so on, even that is starting to try to harden the fuck up. And they're getting a ton of mileage out of the old table flipping scene. You get lots of Christian memes about that, right? Like, that's coming back. They're trying to do it too. But I think European man has basically been domesticated for like 1,000 years. If you look at the overall overarching trend, the large long-term trajectory, that's what you see. Domestication from the like high Middle Ages to now. And European man is really fucking sickly as a result of that. And he knows it, right? So vitalism is coming back. I just don't see how anybody can counter-signal or critique that and still pretend to be like a straight man. We need that shit. We need it. We need vitalism like we need fucking air, right? We're coming through the Spenglerian winter. We haven't been this mollified and weak since maybe late antiquity, maybe never, right? I don't know how you could look at the West today and think, bro, we're like too masculine. We really need something to take the edge off. Like, we need something a bit softer, something that makes us nicer, something that, expands the horizon of care a bit wider, that's more universalist. No, obviously no. And so with this like flawed, but, good revival of vitalism, as for how we interface with it, which was another part of the question, I say we lean into it. I say we own it. I say it's ours. It belongs to us as folkish heathens. There's an anecdote in Caesar's Gallic Wars where he describes like some Celtic tribe that decided to go a Viking, that, you know, they decided to go a conquering. And just to be sure that nobody would, like, you know, chicken out and turn tail and run, they decided to burn their whole village to the ground. That's based.
That is based.
I like that energy. There's another anecdote in just quickly in his book where he describes how the Celts would like muster people to a battle, and they would basically say like, okay, last one in is a rotten egg, and by rotten egg I mean that the last company to show up gets like killed and tortured, right? That's the kind of vitalist energy we need to recapture. That's the kind of vitalism that heathenry brings to the table. Vitalism belongs to us. And I just think we need to take what's ours. So Andrew Tate and all his imitators are just offering a tamer version of Nietzscheanism. And what Nietzsche was doing is he was just poetically exhorting this vital barbarism. And that's ours. That's our stock in trade. So yeah, that's my take on that. Okay. One more question from this patron, and then we'll move on to some other people's questions. Like I say, I should have probably been peppering his questions throughout the whole broadcast. So the question is very simple. What do you think of meditation?
I think meditation is a wonderful practice. I think meditation is a necessary practice. I think that everybody should do it. Everybody should do their breathing techniques. Everybody should do that. I think it's good. I have nothing ill to say about meditation.
Yeah, I think it's dope too. There was, I still remember, I've told this story before, but I'll briefly tell it again. There was a moment in time where I discovered what meditation was. I discovered one kind of meditation by accident, actually, where like you're a kid, you just do silly stuff, right? And the only reason I remember this is because of the crazy effect that it had. As a kid, I just would like take a word and repeat it over and over and over again, like just say it out loud over and over again. And something weird would happen when I did that. And I remember on one occasion, I took the word turtle and I just said the word over and over again, turtle, 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 for like 5 straight minutes or something like that. And after a while, you kind of forget, you kind of like lose the meaning of the word. It kind of just starts to be a sound like, galopside, whatever, like coming out of your mouth. It doesn't mean anything. It's just kind of gibberish, even though you are still saying the word. Or maybe you're not. Like it doesn't mean anything. Maybe it's mutated or whatever. But I just kept saying it. And I kept saying it over and over and over and over again. And then at some stage, I had said it so many times that I actually couldn't say any other words. I couldn't say anything. I was just unable to speak for a while. And when I was in this like headspace, my brain didn't work the same way as it normally did. It was like all of my, at least linguistic categories, which are very closely mapped onto your conceptual categories, were completely exploded. I was unable to really think in the same way that a normal person would think for a little while. It was about 5 minutes that I was just sort of sitting there in space, like unable to really conceptualize what was going on, unable to speak for a while. And then, eventually came back and whatever. I went and played, Mortal Kombat 2 or something. I don't know what I did. But I just went off and did kid shit for the rest of the day. But basically what happened to me in this moment was I discovered what a mantra was. I discovered meditation by accident somehow. And I think that this is a totally valid way to enter into a state where you are susceptible and open to the divine experience. I actually think meditation's awesome. I don't practice it because I don't really find that I have a lot of difficulty entering into that space where I'm open to the divine experience. I feel the presence of the gods very heavy about me at all times, and I kind of always have. But for some people, they don't. For some people, it's hard for them to really feel it. It's hard for them to perform bloat or to perform, the rites to their ancestors and not feel like a bit of a doofus. You know what I mean? Some people, they just don't feel it the way that other people do. And I think if those people were to maybe practice meditation, it might help. I don't know. I've never done that, but it certainly initiated me into a headspace where all of that stuff would have been a lot more, made a lot more sense to me. So yeah, I think meditation's great. Okay. I'm skipping around here, so I'm kind of losing my place.
You said there was kind of like a personal one that you skipped a while back.
Yes. Okay. Let's talk about that. All right. I'm going to read this whole thing because it's, you guys will understand why. Greetings and thanks. I am a 32-year-old woman. In early December, the man with whom I believed I would share my life asked me to leave after nearly 8 years together. We were not married. I left as gracefully as I could manage. He claimed he wanted to become his best self and start anew. I am now single, childless, and mourning the loss of a future in which I have a family and a home where I may forever belong. It feels as if it is too late for me now, and I'm on the verge of breaking completely. What do I do? Is it too late now? Being in this position at this stage was neither my choice nor my preference. It happened as the result of many lesser choices or failures to choose correctly. Now I am clear of heart, mind, and spirit, an abundance I had often lacked in the past. However, time, once abundant, has dwindled. It is a heavy loss to bear. I have to remain hopeful and brave, even if others find that laughable. I am not, by nature, an especially strong and independent person, but I am learning that I will have to become one to survive now. It would be crushing if I let it be, but that is not an option. How do I continue while keeping the faith, maintaining my values, and holding my head up? I lack a community and a close and understanding family. Wise and kind advice is deeply appreciated.
Oh, man.
I told you we were going to get some hard ones.
Yo. Okay, so I want to say this first before we go into this. Miss, I don't know if you have her name. I'm not going to, whatever.
No.
Miss
Anon?
Miss Anon, if you have the ear of this man, or if he listens to this show, I want you to send him this with this timestamp. Fuck you, dude. You petulant, man baby, infantile fucking embarrassment. You suck away this woman's best years so you could go be your best self. Fuck you. I know so many great young men that are thirsting, desperate for a woman's love. That every time they find a date, they go limp to these dates with these horrible modern women that don't even say thank you and shit. And you are going to play games with, and you have some people thinking, oh, what about the other side? What did she do? Dude, if there was another side, he wouldn't have stayed with her for 8 years. And also, crazy whores don't stick around for 8 years. She would have blown that up before. This is a woman that wanted to have children and start a family with a man who she loved, and he fucking betrayed her. To go what? Do what? Go jerk off. Fucking shame. Makes me sick. Fuck you, dude. For real. I know so many dudes that would have picked this girl up 8 years ago, wifed her up, and had a family with her and would love her. This is horrible. Now, that being said, we are where we are. You're 32. You're right. You are coming to the end of your childbearing years. That's true. You have maybe 6 more years. You have about, I think 35 is when you start being considered a geriatric pregnancy, right? I might be able to correct me on that. So you have a few more years. It's not over. You can find a man. So there are a few options that I'm going to pitch to you. And a couple of them might be a little bit weird, but nothing is worse than being alone and lonely and feeling like you're feeling now. The way that you're feeling now is the worst. This is the worst outcome. What you're dreading is the worst outcome. So, you do not really have the time to go through the whole big courtship process, to date a man for a few years and find out if you like him, and then find out he's like this other jerk off and to ditches you to go jerk off and play video games like a fucking man baby. You don't want to go through that again, because if you go through that again, you're cooked. So any man that you go talk to now, you have to, this is going to be kind of scary and rolling the dice, but you have to tell him straight up, I am here to have children. I want to get married and have children right away. Right away. And what I would suggest is finding a man that you've known for a long time, that you vibe with, that you have a connection with. Maybe an old childhood friend, maybe a friend of the family, et cetera, maybe a guy that you worked with for a long time, that you're kind of like single and lonely or whatever, or find a nice single dad. When you get into the age bracket of 30 and up, you can find some nice 30-something-year-old single dads, right? Guys that picked wrong and married some or got with some dumb bitch and had a kid with her, and he pays child support. By all other circumstances, he's a nice guy. He's a good guy. He'll take good care of you. And let me tell you, a lot of these guys that have been, some of them have baggage and act stupid, but a lot of them, the bar for what you need to be as a partner is very low because they've been abused. So if all you got to just do is just be nice to them, and they'll be like head over heels for you. So a nice single dad, but you got to be willing to take that chance with that guy, or find a guy that you vibe with or whatever. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. To get a full test done. There's, I don't know, MBTIs and horoscopes and Jodish, and go through all of that, any possible formula that you could use to figure out compatibility, and do it. Because you don't got time to do courting anymore, right? Maybe a year, maybe 6 months or whatever. But outside of that, you can't wait 2, 3, 4 years to figure out this is another fucking man baby. And there's a whole lot of fucking man babies walking around, especially in your age bracket. Maybe a younger man, right? There's a lot of younger men out there that are, and that might sound a little weird. That might trigger some guys that are in our side of things. But you know what? There's a lot of guys that are in their 20s that are like throwing their hands up, right? They can't find any women in their age. So why not marry a guy that's 23, 24, 25 when you're 32? Who gives a fuck? As long as you end up happy, you end up with children. If you find a man now, maybe you got enough time that you could have 2, 3 kids. Maybe 4. If you a really healthy woman, I know very healthy women that had children in their 40s. Like obviously not you don't want to have your first child when you're 40, and you don't want to have any children when you're 40. Honestly, that's like really, really pushing it. But who knows where it could end up? The weird suggestion that I have, and this is something that I've talked about and all this kind of stuff. And some of you guys in the chat aren't going to like this, but I'm just thinking pragmatically. We have a social problem that needs to be solved. There is an excess of women that are rapidly aging out of their fertility years that want to pair up with a man, and there are not enough available quality men in their age bracket that they can find. Maybe think about being like a sister wife to an already established family that you love and vibe with and everything like that. That sounds weird. That's polygamy. And a lot of the people in the chat might not fuck with it, but it being like a sister wife to a family and this kind of stuff, it's kind of weird or whatever. It's better than being alone and not filling that void.
Yeah, I actually think that a lot of that is very good advice. I wouldn't really countersignal any of it, really. It's not too late. 32, that is pushing it. Of course it is. But, I know lots of women who have had children at 35, 37, 38. My own grandmother gave birth at, I think, I'm guessing, like over 45. Now, that was a different time. I think that, people's fertility in general has changed. So certainly don't wait that long. But I think that there is hope. And I think that I don't really have a lot more practical advice than Dave offered. I think the two things I would emphasize that I think are very, very good pieces of advice are, number one, single dads. Single dads, now make sure that they have some custody of their kids, of course, right?
And then they're not a psycho.
They have to be, yes, certainly. They have to be involved in their kids' lives, obviously. But dads who have gone through that will be very, very happy to have you around, especially if you vibe with their kids, especially if you love their kids, or you obviously it's, you can't judge that right away. But if you are the kind of person who just would love to be involved with their children, that is like, striking gold for a single dad who's a real dad that like is involved in his kids' lives, loves them, wants to mend the gaping wound that is their broken family. You will be appreciated by that guy. I think the idea of approaching young guys, that's also good advice. It's going to be tougher, I think, because they're at a different point in their life. But of course, it's worth a shot, right? The other thing is that young guys have much, much more healthy sperm than older guys. Men's fertility starts to decline as well very early, in their like early 20s. The quality of their fertility and their reproductive abilities declines. They accumulate mutations, and this can cause difficulties with conceiving. It's, especially nowadays, like, you read all these articles about like declining sperm quality and fertility and motility and everything like that. It's like declining fertility is a problem for men as well as women. And I think that a young man you would have noticeably less trouble conceiving with a young man, because that's just how it works. That's just how nature works. And that's why you're more attracted to young men, probably, at least physically anyway. But so that is an option. I think that those are good options. One thing I would suggest, because it was part of the question, she said, I lack a community and a close and understanding family. You can't really do a whole lot about your family that you were born into. I would say if you can, try to cultivate a close relationship with your mother. That's going to be very important. If she can offer you support, that's going to be extremely valuable. Women and their mothers obviously they have a deep connection, but if that connection is flawed and if there's a problem there, it's really hard on women to lack that. So try very hard to mend that if you can, and whether you can or you can't, you need to find a community. Now, not in order to find a husband, because that's going to take too long. I think Dave's advice is pretty solid, and I wouldn't really add much to it. But you need to find a community because you're going to need support. Whether you have kids or not, you are going to need support. If you don't have children, you are going to need emotional support. You're going to need emotional support no matter what. But you can be a valuable member of the community in a maternal way without having your own children. Now, obviously, that is a huge disappointment. That's not what you want, but that is something that you can do in default of having children. And the other thing is, if you do end up having children, you are going to need a support network anyway. From somebody who has had children later in life than, a lot of people, not super late, but later than my parents. And they had me fairly late too. Mm-hmm. If you are a couple, just two people, and you have one child or two children, or, let's hope that you have more. But if you have kids later in life, you don't have the energy to go it alone. You need help. You need a support network. You need a sisterhood. You need a longhouse, to use a phrase that's kind of current in our sphere. You need to have a network of other women around you, whether as a mother or not. You need to have that support, and especially as a mother, because when you have your child, when you have your first child and second child or whatever, it's hard to describe the kind of exhaustion that you feel, especially as an older parent with no help. It's you day in, day out. That baby needs you. You don't get a day off. You don't get your husband will help, but he's going to be fucking tired too, especially if he's a good man and he does help. You're both going to be tired. You're going to need that support network. So you need to get busy in general. Busy trying to find somebody, but also busy trying to find your sisterhood and your community. So there's a lot of socialization, I think, in your future, Miss Anon. But I think also that the road towards healing is in front of you as well. As long as you do these things, and especially as long as you find your community. And now I would say, along with Dave, it's if you can find a religious community, and especially heathen community, that is the best community to be part of. That the hurt that you're feeling now, the disappointment and the betrayal that you're feeling now, the hard part is over. Or if it's not over, then it is about to be in the rearview mirror. The worst, you're getting through the worst now, and things will get better over time if you have a community, if you have support, and especially if you have a husband that wants the things that you have. So it's, things, if you get that support, and if you find what you're looking for in a partner, then I think that your future actually is going to start looking better pretty quick. So yeah, I guess that's what I would say about that.
Also, you mentioned about going to like heathen gatherings to look for, like, not necessarily look for. There's going to be so many young guys at heathen gatherings that you can talk to. It is a meat market. It's just you are going to walk into a meat market. If you're like a single lady and you're looking for a good young man, dog, give me a shout. I know like 10 off the top of my head. Give me, it's for real. If you're in the Northeast in the United States, give me a shout. Give me a shout. I know guys that'll take you out and all kind of stuff. So I'll be Mr. Matchmaker. Hook it up.
Nice. All right. I like that answer. Okay, where are we at here? I've been reordering these questions, so I'm a bit lost. Let's do another one from our big dog patron guy. Would you rather go 50 years into the past or 50 years into the future? Explain your choice, what you would do to prepare, and what you'd like to do on your time voyage. This isn't about metaphysics. It's just a fun thought experiment.
No, man. Do I got to go 50 years? Wait, how long? What?
He said 50 years. So 50 years in the past would be 1973.
Oh, yeah. I'll go 50 years in the past. I want to do the 70s and the 80s, and I want to hit up some of them fucking 80s beach babes. That's what I'm saying. I want to do the 80s beach babes. I want to see freaking You know, I want to see all my favorite. I want to see Black Sabbath in concert when they're still young. I want to I want to vibe. I want to go out. I want to go hit San Francisco and go to San Diego, go to places in California back when it was Beach Boys territory before it was Scumbag, right? That's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. Take me back. Take me back.
Yeah, I kind of had you pegged for that, Dave. I kind of thought that might be your take on that, but my take is actually I would go 50 years into the future, and it's not even close for me. 1973, the era of the end of the hippie era. Led Zeppelin puts out what's that? Houses the Holy. I don't think so. No thanks.
I'm going. Send me.
I know that like some good shit is coming in about 10 years or 15 years or something like that from that time. But I would go 50 years in the future for sure, because you know what? We're going to fucking win. We are going to win. 50 years into the past means you got to live through some dark times. Things are getting pretty dark over that period of time. Yeah, now it is a golden age of cinema and music and stuff like that. But my God, the political, do you want to really live through the Reagan years? Do you want to live through the end of history? I love the music and everything like that, but my God, there's no doubt in my mind as to why Gen X was fucking black pilled.
No. Dog, you send me Reagan and Jimmy Carter and all, fucking Vietnam and all that shit. If I can see Black Sabbath live, meet some hot beach babes, and get cheap cocaine.
Yeah, I get it. I definitely get it. I would love to go back and see like King Crimson in their prime. I would love to go back and like be, young enough to like see the beginnings of like Soundgarden and fucking Alice in Chains and stuff like that. I would love that. I would fucking love that. But at the same time, man, I'm actually really pumped for the future. I think that we're going to go through some dark times in the 2030s. Maybe even next year or the year after. I think in 2025, shit's going to actually get pretty dark. But, that's 1 or 2 years into the future. 50 years into the future? My God, I think that the possibilities are very good for our people demographically. Look, in our thing, there's all this doom and gloom about like demographic replacement and all of this shit. I get it. I absolutely get it. But with what's happening demographically in the third world, with the drop in their birth rates and everything like that, I really think that you are going to see remigration start to become a reality. And not just some crazy like coup d'etat happens and some like based party comes in and starts like deporting people. I don't think that's what's going to happen at all. I think there are two things that cause people to migrate. There are push factors, and that is things that are shitty where you are, and there are pull factors, and that is things that are good where you're going. The pull factors have all been pointing towards the West for a very, very long time. But I think what's going to happen in a generation is you're going to start to see serious pull factors to the third world, right? Because it's not going to be overpopulated or as overpopulated. It's going to be more developed. It's going to be more modernized. And they're going to be thirsting for people. They're going to be thirsting for people to come and work in these, more modernized societies and okay, they're not Western. We wouldn't want to be there. Fine. But I think, people are going to, these pull factors are going to start to pull people away from the West. And it's the remigration is going to be in some measure voluntary. And I think you're going to see that happen at the same time as the deep states in the West really start to lose hold over the power structure, we're going to live through a very, very rough time. We're going to live through the fourth turning. We're going to live through the late winter. Things are going to get really shitty for us. But at the same time, we are going to lay the foundations for the rebirth that comes. I think the rebirth that's going to come is going to happen sometime in about 50 to 100 years. So I would love to be there. I would love to be there at the beginning of that. I think if you're a normal dude that just likes, you just want to grill, that living when we do now is, that you're not going to be a very happy camper. But for weird people like Dave and I, who feel like we want to lay the foundations, that are willing to take the risks, that are willing to, do all this crazy shit for the future, I think that, things are looking good for us. It's going to be a tough time for normal people for a while. But at the end of it, I think it's going to be very, very good for our folk. I see a lot of optimism on the horizon. And 50 years in the future, that's just about when it's going to get started. I think that's when the party's going to fucking start. So I would say I would go 50 years in the future.
Okay. I hear what you're saying, and those are all great takes. Because here's my counter argument. 2 words. 80s babes. Fucking right. Yeah. You can't beat that.
Yeah, I don't know. That might be decisive. Realism versus idealism, Dave. Realism versus
I'm the real
idealism.
one.
You are.
I saw them.
Yeah. We know they existed. We know they happened.
Yeah. We know they happened.
All right.
Next question.
All right. Question. I've been thinking about omitting this question. We certainly can't ask it as it was asked in the email here. So I'm going to rephrase it.
Okay. Because
I don't want to get booted from anywhere. This person says, paraphrasing, I don't tolerate the presence of certain peoples in my circles. In North America, it's not as much the case as it is in Europe. What is your stance on having certain peoples as part of our movement? Hopefully that was not too vague, but vague enough.
I'm not in the movement. I'm not in your movement, so I don't want to answer that question. My movement is grilling and doing cool books and cool music and being a culture dad. I'm the culture dad movement.
You know what? That's basically my answer. I am not part of a movement. The more the time goes on, the less I want to do with the movement, with a movement. I'm a religious guy, and I practice a folk religion. And this automatically draws a hard line around who is allowed within my horizon of care. I've used that term a few times in this broadcast here. My inner circle. That automatically draws a hard line around the type of person, the class of person who is allowed into my life, that is allowed into the, who I interact with on a deep and abiding level. And this automatically excludes others. There is nothing special about any particular class of person that makes them more of a threat than others. And I would say that being folkish is the solution to that problem. But I don't want to be part of a political movement, and I'm not really part of a political movement. When I started Imperium, I did not start it for political reasons. I started it because I wanted to republish books that have been part of our folks' culture and history and spirituality forever, that have just being shit on by all of the mainstream publishers. It is astonishing to me still. I've been at this for years now. I am still, day after day, my jaw hits the floor with how absolutely negligent these universities and these institutions, academia, has been with teaching these books, teaching the lessons of the past, teaching history. I cannot believe how idiotic these people are. They have completely dropped the ball. And I'm just talking about culture now. I'm not talking about politics. I'm just talking about, Shakespeare, the Iliad, Dante, Herman Melville, all these huge, the greatest geniuses that have ever lived. They've decided to exclude them. Can you imagine such a thing? What an utterly moronic thing to do. And it's fallen to little old me to revive that. It's almost like I'm in a dream. It's so surreal and bizarre that nobody else has done what I'm doing before me. That is my motivation. That is my movement. And I'm not really interested in politics per se. I think what we are doing is going to influence politics. I think politics is going to come to us, building our focus movement, shall you say, our focus religious movement. I think that we are the future. So all this other stuff is just trivia. It's just trivia. That's my movement. So, okay, that's all I'm going to say about that question. Where are we with the other ones? Bro, we've only done half of our patron bros questions. So let's get into the rest.
Does he have any short ones?
Yeah, the next one's short. Tolkien or Lewis as the better English Christian yet pagan adjacent fantasy writer?
Tolkien.
I would say Tolkien by default. I have, just because I haven't really read that much of Lewis. But what I have read, it doesn't really, like, he's a great writer and he does build a very compelling fantasy world, but Tolkien's got that something. I've said this before many times. The first time I read Beowulf, I was like, oh, that's where Tolkien came from. Yeah. He really does very authentically. He gets it. He gets the spirit of the early Anglo-Saxon. And I just don't get that out of almost anybody else.
Lewis is wonderful. Lewis is a legend. Yeah. He's wonderful. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I love that book. He's great. Tolkien is better. Next question.
Yeah, it's hard to compare. Okay, next question. All the rest of the questions are from our patron, bro. What do you make of all the anti-Christian satanic/devil imagery and the stories to do with the devil, which emanate out from the music entertainment industry? This is a long question, so I've had to cut some out of it. Christians justify their Christian mission in part because the people who are bringing so much evil into the world openly worship the Christian devil. Christianity, being the dominant religion of the West for the past 1,000 to 1,500 years, is more to blame for this phenomenon than it being metaphysically true. And I think by it, he means the evil of the Christian devil. And opposed to the so-called prince of this world. We as pagans need to reject this satanic imagery just as vociferously as the Christians do. So the question is, how do we as pagans feel about Satanism, basically?
It's the worship of chaos. It's a practice of dark magic. It's individualism and self-worship. It's everything myth and garbage that we hate. So just because it falls within like a different religion's paradigm doesn't mean that we're not against it. I wipe my whole ass with Satanism, with Luciferianism, and all that crap. It makes me want to puke. And I tolerated it before a lot more because I was into heavy metal and it was edgy. It's all in metal, and I still like some of that music. And it doesn't bother me because I know that it's a performance. But as a whole, if you walk up to me and you're wearing some kind of Luciferian kind of imagery, we're not friends.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Satanism is fake. It's a novelty religion, if it even is a religion, to the extent that it is religious. It's paganism a la carte, as I've called it. It's like a pinch of Wicca, a little bit of, sex magic and tantric this or whatever. It's just a bunch of fucking bullshit.
It's garbage.
It's LARPy, unserious, inauthentic Marvel paganism. Satan, as a metaphysical entity, has nothing to do with us. the dynamic between Satan and Yahweh is not our theological issue. It's a Jewish theological issue that does not map onto the dynamic between pagan and Christian. Pagans are not Satanists, and Christians are not opposed. What Christians are opposed to in Satanism isn't paganism. That said, Christians have adopted some pagan theological elements into their religion and turned them upside down. So, for example, devils, right? We talked about this on the episode on the storyteller. In the one folk tale where the guy's playing cards against the devils, and the devils have to keep, they make a wager, and then they have to, keep their word with that wager and everything like that. They have to keep their promises. That is not something satanic. That is something pre-Christian. That is something that is. They're not devils. They are land spirits. In particular, in that story, they're probably the spirits of the castle that the guy went into. There's probably something. I mean, it's speculation, but I'm quite certain that that's where that descends from. That is not devilry per se. That is their house spirits, land spirits, nature spirits. That is what Christians call devils, and that has nothing to do with Satanism. Satan, that is. As for Satan or the devil himself, I mean, this has nothing to do with paganism. There's a line that gets repeated very often even in heathen circles that I think actually is not good. And it comes from Tolkien himself, who is not perfect. He did a lot of great things, but in some ways, he is actually opposed to the heathen worldview because he's a Catholic, right? Mm-hmm. He says that evil can't create. It can only spoil what good has created. And this is wrong. A lot of pagans repeat this. It has nothing to do with our theology. When someone says only good can create, this concept, this idea is actually doing something. What it's doing is it's reinforcing and underpinning and enshrining logos. And logos has nothing to do with us. That is against what we believe. What it's saying when it says only good can create is it's saying that the divine forces that underpin reality are pure order, and there is no other element to it. Now, I don't think that there is any evidence for this in paganism. If anything, I think most Indo-European paganisms, and actually quite a few non-Indo-European religions, see disorder as part of the divine. Now, it's not something to be worshipped. It's not something that is the whole of the divine. Certainly not. But it is part of it. Out of the body of Ymir, the giant, everything was created. The world was created. And the giant is not a force of order, right? You could also see this in certain Egyptian theologies as well.
This is a can of worms.
It is a can of worms. Whatever. I'm just throwing it out there as some way in which the idea of the devil as the negation of order is not quite a pagan thing. There is no devil as the divine antagonist in traditional archaic Indo-European theologies. The first time that you see this is in Zoroastrianism, and Zoroastrianism is an innovation and a heresy. The devil as the inversion of order, the pure inversion of order, is axiality, is the axial age. That is an innovation that comes in, and it has nothing to do with the original, bottom layer of Indo-European theologies, especially their theogonies, their creationists. He asked the theological questions. We got to go there, right? So, but I guess what I'm saying is we should reject Satan as having nothing to do with us. In a very important sense, we should not reject those authentic heathen aesthetic elements in things like black metal, in things like metal in general, heavy metal, and the Romantic movement and the Renaissance and things like that. We should not reject those authentic heathen aesthetic elements that Christians don't like. That doesn't mean that we should embrace Satanism, certainly not. But those authentic aesthetic elements that really are heathen, I think, are important and that we should embrace them. Things like the love of darkness in aesthetics, the chiaroscuro that you see in like black metal. We should embrace the idea of like the wild waste of like the heath or the rural ideal. That's folk culture, and that's something that is kind of don't like, right? Like the wheat fields get a little bit kitschy, but in general, that's a good thing. We shouldn't reject the idea of magic, right? Which Christians do reject. Magic is rife in high fantasy. That's not a bad thing. It's not satanic either, because Satanism is really not a thing for us. It doesn't have anything to do with us. So I don't know. Hopefully that wasn't too unclear. But let's move on to the next question. This is a long one, and I already had to cut it down. It's a two-part question, so I've split it up into two parts.
Okay.
Here it is. What do you make of the proposition that if it weren't for the coming of Islam, the Middle East, that is Egypt, Fertile Crescent, and Persia especially, would it be seen as part of the same broad cultural space as Europe? What do you make of the idea that if it weren't for Islam, the Middle East would be part of Europe culturally? Many in the dissident right don't like to talk about it or have an aversion to this trend. It's nevertheless true that many people do see ourselves as even having roots in that part of the world. The pagan Sumerians, Babylonians, Phoenicians, and Egyptians are often looked at as cultural ancestors of ours, or at least as neighbors belonging in the same conceptual basket as us. There really are aspects of our daily lives which come from that place, beyond just Christianity. Even in terms of genetics, especially in Christian communities, Middle Easterners are often better analyzed as being made of the same stuff as we are. So that's the first part of the question.
Where was the question? It just sounded like a statement.
Yeah, I mean, the statement is the Middle East is the same it's part of the same cultural space as Europe. And the question is, do you agree with that?
No, I don't.
Yeah. I don't agree with that either. I don't think it is.
I don't even think it's the same cultural space as the cultures that predated it. The Semitic cultures like Egypt and freaking, the Cushites and the, Mesopotamians and, so on and so forth. They're not the same people as the Arabs that brought Islam. They're completely different peoples, had completely different cultures, completely different everything. It's like, and those people weren't part of the same cultural space as us. You know what I mean? They were a uniquely different people. A lot of guys fall into these like we was-isms where they think like the Egyptians were these ancient Hyperboreans and like the only people capable of civilization are European type people. Dog, some of these civilizations existed like before as we understand Europeans existed. You know what I mean? Like Europeans weren't even really a thing when some of these things were built. Plenty of other peoples in the world have been capable of building grand civilizations. And this is presupposing that civilization is actually a good thing. There's arguments against that being a nomad and a hunter-gatherer is a superior thing. If you want to go down that road, I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with any of it. But the bottom line is the Chinese build a great civilization. The Indians build a great civilization. The people in the Near East, the freaking Mesopotamians, I mentioned the Nubians, the Egyptians. Obviously, the Egyptians build a magnificent, very impressive. Yeah. So it's like we're not the only ones that can build shit. Other people can build shit, and we can accept that there are different people that are also like smart and capable and shit. We don't have to be the only ones. In fact, I'm totally cool if we're the Grugs.
Yeah, might be good for us actually, and probably at one point we were like vis-a-vis the Sumerians. I don't think that the Middle East is part of the same cultural space as Europe. The first clue is that linguistically we're not related to them. The last comment, and this shit changes all the time because academics and that sphere, that world of academia is very politicized. So a lot of times shit changes just for political reasons. But as far as we know, the general, not consensus, but the general what is most people believe in academia is that the last common ancestor between, say, the Semitic and the Indo-European languages is much more distant than, say, the Uralic peoples. We are much closer related to those peoples than we are to the people in the Middle East. Egypt is a weird one. It's an exception and a kind of a mystery. Now, I'm not saying that we was Egyptians, not nearly, but it's not even Semitic. It's like its language is Afroasiatic. It's not part of that sphere. I don't think that Egypt is only part of the Middle East sort of geographically. Culturally, it's kind of not. It doesn't really bear a lot of mythic parallels with, say, the contemporary cultures of like the Sumerians and the Assyrians. Some, but not that much. It's weird. There's very striking parallels between Egyptians and the Indo-Europeans in terms of their theology and some of their practices. Again, I'm not saying that, the Indo-Europeans were the ancestors of the Egyptians or anything at all like that. I'm just saying Egypt is weird. It's very hard to put them in a box. And of course, language is not coterminous with folkhood. But kind of in the long term, it kind of is, though. Like over a long enough period, a long enough time frame, peoples and languages do tend to kind of, be congruent with each other. Like Yiddish is a Germanic language, but it's also like substantially not. And over time, it's kind of becoming more and more Semitic. Like Nigerian Pidgin is like based on English, but it's also very much not based on English. And over time, it's becoming more Nigerian. Now, it's true, and to give some credence to this idea, it's true that there has been some mythic borrowing in Greece, but I think it's less than is like often supposed by people like Martin West. Even Hesiod's Theogony, which is often cited as Eastern, shows very, very interesting parallels with the Norse creation myth, and even with, again, the Hermopolitan Egyptian creation myth. But, if anything, I think that we have inherited less culture from the Middle East than we have inherited material and technical achievements. Not so much in the terms of like myths and like practices and folkways and things like that, but we have inherited agriculture from Sumer. We've inherited metallurgy from them, the chariot. We've inherited the plow. We've inherited counting and mathematics. Those all came from Sumer. We got the wheel from Assyria. We got astrology from Babylon. We got writing from Phoenicia. We got like algebra from the Arabs. We got chemistry from the Arabs. We've inherited a lot more technical stuff from them than we have cultural stuff. And in fact, I would say, given the proximity of these civilizations, apart from Christianity, it's astonishing that there hasn't been more influence, right? The cultural spheres have actually remained fairly distinct. If you compare the cultural influence of the Middle East on us to the influence of people like the Turks or the Xiongnu or the Mongols and the Uyghurs on the Chinese, there's actually much more mutual influence over there. Now, Christianity is obviously the huge exception. So if that's what we're talking about with this question, if we mean, are we culturally part of the Middle East because of our, the West's religion for the last 1,500 years? I mean, obviously the answer is yes. I would absolutely concede the influence there. We form a continuum with the Middle East if we're talking about Christianity. But Christianity, even itself, has been substantially Europeanized. And at the same time, Europe has substantially been Easternized by Christianity. Like there's, ex oriente lux, light out of the East. This whole idea tends to get internalized over time and to make us really xenophilic. And ultimately, I think this is the real influence of the Middle East on us. So, I know some disconnected thoughts on that, but ultimately,
I like hummus. Hummus is pretty good.
Oh, me too. I've got a banging hummus recipe. So I gotta send that your way, Dave. All right. So last question here from our patron, and it's actually piggybacking on the last one. Please comment on what you believe the place of works like the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Enuma Elish, the Baal cycle, the Egyptian myths are in the Western canon. Some of these are considered beyond any doubt to have contributed in major ways to the works of Homer, for example, Homer being at the bedrock of the canon. So, to paraphrase, the myths and stories of the Middle East, like pre-Christian and pre-Jewish myths, how do those fit into the Western canon?
You asking me?
Yeah. Dave, you give your thoughts on that first.
You're killing me with these galaxy brain questions here. Throw me another one about going back in time. Yeah.
Dave, would you go back to Sumer and be the bard recounting the Epic of Gilgamesh, or would you go 5,000 years into the future? That's the question.
I would probably go 5,000 years into the future because there's electric guitars. I don't want to go somewhere before electric guitars. I'm like running out of steam here. I'm like starting to get a little loopy. But no, the Epic of Gilgamesh, that's not the West, so we can't consider that to be the Western canon. You know what I mean? Did it possibly inform Homer? Of course. I mean, a lot of people agree that it did. I'm not really the guy to answer that question because I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about with it. I'll be honest with you.
Look, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Enuma Elish, the Baal myths, the Egyptian myths. Fuck, I love the Egyptian mythic cycle, the Osirian cycle. Cool. That is some striking, dope shit. Is it part of the Western canon? Not really. If the canon is just a geographical phenomenon, and if we're talking about things that are sort of like, were made within this particular, real estate, then maybe, arguably. But I think what the canon is more fundamentally is it's a kind of sphere of influence. What has influenced, the writing of Homer, Shakespeare, all these, these big dogs of like literary and cultural creation. If it's judging in terms of influence, these are really only recently influential. Egyptian hieroglyphs were only deciphered in the 19th century. Mm-hmm. Most of the Egyptian myths are known to us today only through translations that are like 150 years old at most. Gilgamesh was first translated in the 1870s. Enuma Elish might be an exception here because it's almost certainly influenced the Torah. This is the Babylonian creation myth, or Sumerian, where you get a flood myth. Okay, I'll give you that one. It's very close. That particular mytheme is very close to a Greek myth of Deucalion. It's very close to the flood myth in Genesis. That's probably quite influential. I don't see any influence of any of these on Homer whatsoever, to be honest. I don't know what that was what that's referring to. I don't think Homer was influenced by any of these, really. Epic of Gilgamesh, I mean, there are parallels, but I just don't think that the cultural transmission, the mechanism of cultural transition was not there. I just don't see that. And I don't see the mythic parallels. I don't see the comparative connections.
It's something that is pretty accepted among like academics and stuff. And it's like, I think what they're working with is pretty, like, would Homer have been able to read cuneiform in that ancient language? Would he have been able to understand that? How many years apart were those civilizations?
Like 3,000 or 2,000. Yeah. It was huge. There was like a huge like gap in time. Now we don't really have any. There are no real echoes that I'm aware of, and I don't think that there are any real echoes of the Epic of Gilgamesh coming down through history that are really discernible. That we can even see. I don't think that we can see much of that in like the Hittites, for example, which was a Indo-European civilization much closer to that time frame than Homer. I don't think we see a lot of that. Now, this is not to say that it wasn't influential within its cultural sphere, within within Mesopotamia itself, but I just don't think that it. I think that the influence or the parallels between Homer and the Epic of Gilgamesh are very much overstated by academics, and I think that this is part of a. I hate to say this because it seems like a cop-out, but I don't think it is. I think that it's very politically motivated to see this and just to be like, look, Homer is just the same as these like ancient Sumerian epics. It's Ricardo Duchesne in the introduction to our Iliad argues that the Epic of Gilgamesh doesn't even qualify as an epic, that it's a different genre altogether. Mm-hmm. Now, I think it's awesome. I love it. I was enthralled when I first read the Epic of Gilgamesh. But I just don't see a lot of influence on Homer. Now, there are some parallels, I guess you could give. Like, it has a very much this worldly sort of view of the afterlife. I mean, of course, Gilgamesh is seeking immortality, and so is Achilles. But it's like that's as far as the parallels go. Usually when you're looking for influence, you're looking for something a lot more specific than that. That's kind of like, it's a theme, and themes don't generally get transmitted as like influences. Like you can see some very clear parallels between Homer and like the Mahabharata, say, for example, that are coming from a very, very deep place. And I think that Homer is actually much older than we suppose. But that's another can of worms. I would say if possibly there was some influence of these cultures, especially Egypt, on Plato, but even that tends to be very dubious. Anybody familiar with the Egyptian mythic cycles are going to be very hard-pressed to find any mythic parallels in Plato. Now, there is some stuff like, in, Phaedrus, the Phaedrus dialogue, he gives like an Egyptian myth, but it's not in any of the Egyptian, primary sources that we have. It's just something that's in Plato, right? And if Plato hadn't mentioned going to Egypt to be educated, or Pythagoras going to Egypt to be educated, then the influence would never have even occurred to us, because their theological paradigm is just so different from the Greeks. I think the Greeks inherited architecture from them and some other things, but not much in the way of myth until later. Later, you get these weird sort of like cults of Isis and Osiris and things like that, but not in the like old Greek myth. I think if anything, the most influence of Egypt and the Middle East has probably been on folklore. You do see some borrowing of the folk tales on the edges of folk traditions in terms of like their tale types and things like that. There's some very clear borrowing going on in folklore, but not the myths, not so much of that. But in general, these Near Eastern works that were cited in the question, at least in terms of their influence, are sort of like more on a par, influence on the Western canon, are sort of more like on a par with the influence of Moby Dick or James Joyce, because they're new, because we have only discovered them and integrated them into the Western canon recently. They're not anywhere near on the level of being influential on a Homer or a Shakespeare or a Dante or a Milton or something like that. They're influential from like 1850 onwards, but is that part of the canon? I don't think so. Personally, no. I don't think they belong there. The Bhagavad Gita has been about as influential as these. Nobody puts that in the Western canon. Buddhism has been about as influential as them, and probably more. Nobody puts that in the Western canon. So, yeah, I don't think they belong.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all she wrote, bro. That is all the questions that we have.
Well, I got a few over on my end if you want to knock them out real quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I'm going to start with the easy ones because we just went through some big brain ones. And then I got a couple personal ones here. So Dave and Mike, what do you think are each other's worst takes?
Ooh, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a take that I like hate. I don't know. You go first. I can't think of one right off the top of my head.
Kurt Cobain. I
know you hate that guy.
We did the grunge episode. You fucking won me over with a bunch of them. I fucked with Mother Love Bone. I fucked with Stone Temple Pilots. I already liked them, but some Soundgarden. There's some other bands you showed me. I thought they were pretty good. Nirvana. I can't do it. I think he sucks.
Oh,
and when I did that thing, post like your favorite riff, and you post that one Nirvana song that he just kind of like, I was so mad about that. I was upset, physically upset. That wasn't even a riff. Come on.
That's number 2 in my list. The only one that tops that is Whole Lotta Love. That is the only riff better than School by Nirvana.
Oh my God, I hate this is my new most hated take from you.
You don't like Whole Lotta Love?
No, I don't even think that's the best Zeppelin riff.
Disqualified. All right, that's my most hated Dave take right there. Whole Lotta Love, not number 1 riff of all time. I just can't fuck with that, bro.
It's not even the best
podcast canceled. This is the last episode. I'm sorry.
You think that's like better than like Immigrant Song or Black Dog or something like that?
Black Dog's not even up there. Immigrant Song, no. I think that's dope. I think that's fucking dope.
Go on.
Black Dog's too complicated. Fucking you get 4 notes. I'll give you 4 fucking notes. That's all you get in a like dope riff. That is my criterion.
No.
That's one of my criteria for a dope riff.
No.
It can't be too complicated. That's why Immigrant Song fucks. That's why Whole Lotta Love fucks. Black Dog, fuck that shit. I like I like that song. I like that song. Fucking, it just isn't. Look, When the Levee Breaks, so much better of a riff. That riff is so much fucking better.
What's the one that's like down, 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 down? You know,
that's Moby Dick.
That's a good one.
Right. I like that one. Wait, no, that's Heartbreaker. I'm sorry, that's Heartbreaker. Ramble On, I'll give you that one. That's fucking. It's not really a riff, but I just think that's a great guitar track.
Over the Hills and Far Away.
Oh, I love that one. That's fucking amazing.
I'm not even a big Zeppelin guy. I think Zeppelin's overrated.
Yeah, they probably are. They're probably overrated because they're so highly rated. I love Nirvana, and I think Nirvana is overrated. They're just like so. Everybody just fillets these bands. They're great. They're like they deserve to be where they are, but like people really put them up on a pedestal way too high. But yeah, fucking Whole Lotta Love. No, that's just the best riff of all time. I'm sorry.
No, man, you're killing me. You're saying that's like better than freaking like Into the Void or freaking Fairies Wear Boots.
Yeah.
And I know it's overplayed, but dude, the Iron Man riff or Smoke on the Water, like those are like the 2 most recognizable riffs of all time.
Those are great riffs. I would never gainsay those riffs. Fairies Wear Boots. I'm less stoked on that.
Killing me.
Into the Void. That one fucking kills. Okay, that's going in the top 10. You know what I mean? But I don't know. A riff's got to be really fucking killer. You can't have more than like 4 or 5 notes. No. You just can't.
I'm both. I think you can have dope simple riffs and you can have dope complicated riffs. And either way is good as long as it's just good. Good is good.
Too many twiddles and diddles. I just can't get down with the twiddles and diddles.
Nah.
It's not my thing.
Yeah, then if we're talking greatest, dude, what about ZZ Top, Cheap Sunglasses? Come on, bub.
Oh, yeah.
My baby's died. Yeah, I love ZZ Top. They fuck.
Yeah.
All right. There's another guitar question in here. So
This is an episode. We could do an episode on best riffs of all time. In fact,
write that down. Write that down.
All right.
Let's do that. Okay. So we're going to do a personal one here. I'm going to save the big one for the end. It says, Dads of Culture, I require thy wisdom. It says, I'm 24 and I'm 24. I'm dating an awesome girl from work. We go out on dates and have a great time, but for some reason it's not going to the next level. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. That's not enough information, bud.
Yeah, I was going to say need more information.
Going to the next level. What's that mean? What's the next level? You know, what's the next level? What does dates mean? Like, where are you guys at? How long you been messing around? Like, that's not enough. You got to give me a little more meat on that bone, bub.
Table that one. This is to the guy who asked it. Table that one for the next AMA, but you got to sketch out the backstory a little more.
Yeah. All right. So I'll riff on it. Let's say you mean the next level, like you guys are vibing, but it's not going beyond that. Like you're enjoying each other's company. You're not going beyond that. Yeah, I've heard that before. So, guys, there is a complaint against modern men from young women that you guys, and I don't want to, I'm trying not to say this in a jerk way, that you guys are too sheepish. I've heard that many, many times, that young men are sheepish. Like you go to the movie theater and you don't make moves. You wait forever to make moves. You don't do it. Dude, she wants you to touch her. She wants you to put hands on her. She wants you to take it to the next level. She wants you to do, that's your job, bro. That's your job. And let me tell you something, dude, if she's going out with you a bunch of times, she's not some crazy feminist that's going to call the police if you try to give her a smooch, right? In fact, that means that she wants you to take it. This is what I would do, and this is what I've done. You know, say you go to the movies, dog, try to get up that skirt, dude. Women, what turns women on is the fact that they turn you on. They like to feel desired, right? They want to know that you're attracted to them. They want to feel beautiful. They want to feel attractive. They want to feel your affection. Put your hands on her. I'm not saying like fucking like, you know, drag her into an alley or something fucking psycho. But I mean, like, you know, put your arm around her, try to give it and go in for a smooch, go in for make a move on. And if she pushes you off, if she smiles and like whatever, and then you guys go out again, that means she likes it and she wants you to keep trying. So fucking, you just try to make a move, dude. Like fucking make a move. If that's what you're talking about, make a move, you know, fucking, and also little things, you know what I mean? This is something that I yeah, dude, physical affection, women like physical affection. When you hold the door on her, put your hand around her fucking waist, you know, give her a squeeze, fucking, you know, that kind of shit. You know what I mean? Just mundane signs of affection to communicate that you're attracted to her and you are trying to bone, right? Not that that's what it's all about, but that, dude, that type of thing needs to be there. There needs to be like some sexual attraction. It's not a fucking, you know, you're not filling out an application or something. You know what I mean? There's a, I don't know. You gotta, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Fucking, yo, you pull your meat out, bub.
Just pull it out, bro.
don't do that. But I don't
figuratively speaking.
Yeah, I don't mean pull your meat out like literally. I mean like pull your meat out metaphorically.
Yeah,
show her your meat.
Pull your thumb out of your ass.
Yeah, keep being a fucking pussy. Come on, dog.
Yeah. All right. Yeah,
we got two more. Mike and Dave. K-Dads is big time based. You can't beat it.
You can't beat it. You can't beat it.
I know who this is, bro. But he goes, recently Rolling Stone put out the gayest top 100 guitar player list ever. I hated it. Who would be in the K-Dads top 10?
Oof. Another guitar question. Ooh, well, yeah, I mean, I'm going to say, obviously, I think there's some obvious ones. Tony Iommi, Jimmy Page. I'm going to give you some slightly more obscure ones. I'm going Kim Thale from Soundgarden's got some good riffs.
He plays a cool guitar.
I've got to say Robert Fripp from King Crimson. That guy is an absolute monster. Such a great guitar player. I'm going to say Pat Martino. This is a weird one. He's a jazz player. He's probably my favorite jazz guitar player of all time. What are some others? I'm reaching back into the vault here. I'm going to have to like look around at like my CD collection or whatever. Dave, you throw out some. I'll keep thinking.
All right. So if I'm doing just like my top 10 favorites, I mean, if I'm doing like top 10 best, most influential of all time, it's going to be different than my favorites. And that's going to be, that would take a little bit more because then you got to take historical things into account. You know, we put, top 10 best or greatest of all time. Les Paul would have to be on that top 10, but I can't name a single Les Paul song because he was like dead 20 years before I was born. You know what I mean? Yeah. I know he was great. I've seen his videos. The first real electric guitar is named after him. You know what I mean? Like he's got to be on that, but he's not going to be. I didn't even learn about Les Paul until I was like 5 years into playing guitar and doing music, like doing history dives. So if it's just my top 10 favorites off the top, and I'm probably going to think back later and hate it and want to switch somebody out, but Dime, Iommi, Richie Blackmore. I said Richie Blackmore, Dime, Iommi, Billy Gibbons, Eric Clapton, Stevie Ray Vaughan, freaking. Let me get I love Jeff Loomis. Did I already say Malmsteen?
No, I don't think so.
Malmsteen. Oh my God, who would be like last two? Freaking. If I had two more, let's think of somebody that like influenced me as a guitar player. Some of the guys that influenced me as a guitar player, I wouldn't even like really put them on there. Guys like Jeff Hanneman from Slayer and
yeah.
But I can't put that because he wasn't. I'll put Jeff Hanneman on there. Who'd be a final one? Freaking, I already said Dime. Oh man, who would be a last one? Who's like? Did I say Billy? I already said Billy Gibbons. Freaking, let's go. I don't know. Who'd be my last one? This is fucking hard. Leslie West from Mountain.
Yeah. I can't really fault you for any of those. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of like some of them, but like they're all super impressive and influential. I think we got to put David Gilmour out there. That guy is one of my favorite guitar players of all time. Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm trying to stay away from like the super obvious ones like Jimi Hendrix and stuff like that. Alex Lifeson from Rush, great guitar player.
Oh yeah.
I would put in some. Do I get to talk about classical guitar players? Is that in the list? Because you've got to talk about Julian Bream. You've got to talk about Andres Segovia, but he's very influential. Jose Feliciano, great guitar player. But these are classical ones. I don't know. I'm guessing that we're talking about rock here in general. What about Brian May from Queen? Great fucking guitar player.
Absolutely.
These are not obscure by any.
Randy Rhoads.
Yeah, for sure.
You got to put him on there. Eddie Van. Oh, let me switch out somebody for Eddie Van.
He's got to be
on there.
Yeah, for sure. I would put Santana in there for the first 10 years. Yeah.
I love Santana. He doesn't get much love unless you go to like a bar where there's a bunch of old Puerto Rican dudes.
Yo, Samba Pate, that was a very special song for me when I was a kid. Very, very. I love that song. I can get down with that song any day.
Dude, old head Puerto Ricans, if you look like a dude, like if you're a white dude with like shaggy hair, they are like, they see you're like chum in the water, and they're waiting to come up and talk to you about Santana and talk about how he's a great
exactly.
player ever.
They fucking love it, bro.
Hey, papito, you play the guitar? Huh? You know Carlos Santana? I see Carlos Santana, San Juan, 1975. He the best, man. That every time I've had that conversation 1,000 times.
Yeah, for sure, man. You know, we got to talk about Kirk Hammett. Like, come on. Great guitar player.
Dave Mustaine. Dave Mustaine.
Yeah. Now, here's one that, you know, Dave might hate. I think John Frusciante is a great guitar player. Great fucking guitar. There's the guitar player from the Chili Peppers. That guy is there's an amazing video of them just like jamming, just like improvising or whatever. Like awesome guitar player.
No, I hate him. He's got licks. He's a great songwriter, you know.
Yeah. Yo, I don't like this guy, but he's just so renowned. What about Stevie Ray Vaughan?
I said Stevie Ray.
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
Stevie Ray. Yeah, Stevie Ray was the guy that like put blues, like you can't go past him.
Yeah. If we're talking influential, we've got to say Robert Johnson. You know, super important guitar player. Leadbelly, there's one. There's another guy. Like
Muddy Waters.
Leadbelly's like if you watch him play Pick a Bale of Cotton, there's a great video of him. It's like a video of the guy from like the 40s playing that song, and it's like his technique is just outrageous. It's just off the charts. So good. Yeah, I don't know. We could go on and on and on. I probably have like named at least 10 now.
So. Oh yeah, there's so many.
Leadbelly is real. That's the one I would say. Look, if you are a guitar guy and you've never heard this guy play, such a great fingerstyle guitar player, just unbelievably good. So.
Oh, who's the other guy? Fingerstyle, but he played electric. He played a Strat.
Lindsey Buckingham?
No, everybody names him all the time. I can't believe.
Oh, Mark Knopfler?
No, that's Knopfler's from Dire Straits, right?
Yeah.
No, he's great too. Now, what the fuck's his name? Oh my God, he's slipping my mind. He's like one of like in like every top 3, every top 5. Freaking not Eric Johnson.
Is he a blues guy?
He's sort of a blues guy. He's kind of like an offbeat blues guy.
Jeff Beck.
Yeah. Jeff Beck always gets named.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, cool. Oh my God. Yeah. You guys got to chill with the guitar questions. Like, no, you throw it's like something easier, like top bass players or something. I'll be able to name that better because I'm not a bass player. Well, Mike might have trouble because he's a fucking bass player. Mike's an everything player. But, okay. So, okay. I got one more and then we're closing it out. This one's kind of messed up. So, this is a personal one. It says, Dear Dave and Mike, I love K-Dads and how you two bring a perspective from a fatherly point of view. It's very refreshing. It says, I'm 7 months pregnant with my first child, and my fiance and I are preparing to purchase our first house. A few months ago, my fiance went with his work friends for going away. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading my screen because it's far away. Going away party for a coworker. He got so drunk that he had to get dropped off and spend half the night. He spent half the night in the toilet. This was very unusual for him because he doesn't really drink. Well, I recently found out that he cheated on me that night with a girl from his work. I confronted him about it and he immediately fessed up, but he still tried to hide it. He's been trying everything to make it up to me, but I'm so hurt. I can't believe he did that after we've been together for years. I love him so much and want to marry him, but I don't know what to do. He's not a cheater, and he's been so good to me. My girlfriends all tell me I need to leave him, but it's more complicated than that. Our baby will be here soon, and I don't know what to do. I'm sorry for the big question, and it's okay if you don't want to answer it. I know it's out of left field. Love you guys. Hail. Damn. Okay. Mike, you want to start, or you want me to take it?
That's a lot riding on that question, man. There's a whole family riding on that question.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, infidelity is an automatic no. It just is. I mean, that is, put it this way. I try to take my folkish religion and folkways very seriously. In many of the Indo-European branches, that transgression would have, if it was done by the wife to the husband, it would have given the husband cause to put his wife to death. Now, I'm not saying that is something that needs to be done or anything at all like that. I'm just using that as an illustration of the seriousness of infidelity to our folk. But you have to be practical about it as well. Obviously, one does not go about breaking up one's family lightly, not at all. Rather than saying here's what you should do or here's what is mandated by our folk or by our religion or whatever, because there's a degree of judgment involved. I would say it's really important to consider, can you ever trust him again? He's not a cheater, but I don't know.
Is he?
People generally don't do those things by accident. It's usually not something that just is like, I'm not saying that he's like out there looking all the time or whatever, but that is, for me, that I could never trust that person again. I could never trust him. That is a very hard no for me. And it's, a lot of it comes down to faith, but also just it's hard. It's really hard for me to say, it's hard for me to tell you, go do this, right? But if it was me, that would be the end of the relationship. It just would. Like, I just cannot, I would not be able to brook that. And also think about, suppose that you have a little girl. What advice would you give her if that happened to her? How would you feel about your son-in-law? And there's so many questions here. There's so many things to consider. This is not an easy thing. And I'm giving what I would do as a fairly clear answer, but I want to acknowledge how thorny this issue is and how much is riding on it and how much, it should not be entered into lightly.
Yeah. This is probably the heaviest question, like, at least in a long, long time that somebody, first of all, I want to say that I'm sorry that this is happening to you. And I completely understand, I'm a father too. I have a wife and I know how fragile the situation is and how it's a big deal. It's a big deal. I'm going to cease the preamble. I'm going to tell you what I think. So, so firstly, you mentioned about your girlfriends. I'm going to tell you something, and this is some of what I'm going to say is some like ladies might not want to hear this. But I went in and tore up the man babies earlier, so you guys know that I'm not some woman hater. don't ever go to your girlfriends for advice or wisdom or solutions for relationships or your life. Your girlfriends are there to emotionally support you and to validate you, and that's it. They will never give you good advice. They will tell you he ain't shit. They're going to say, fuck him, leave him. They're going to personalize it and be mad. Maybe they have biases. They don't like him. Who knows? You can't trust these your girlfriends to give you good advice with relationships and stuff. If you want, you go to your girlfriends when you need a shoulder to cry on. You go to your girlfriends when you want to vibe and gossip, and they're your girlfriends. You love them, and you should keep your sisterhood forever and ever. But when you need solutions and sound, clear advice based on logic and coming out with outcomes, you got to ask a man. And you got to ask an older man. And you got to ask an older man that knows what it's like to be sort of in your shoes. I wouldn't ask your dad or your brother because they're going to see red and want to kill him. They're not going to come up with something. Maybe they are. Maybe your dad's an even-keeled guy and he's like, whatever. I don't know your dad or your brothers or your uncles or whatever. But I would assume that the moment that you mention this to your dad, he's going to want to go over with the guys in your family and fuck this guy up. Right? So that being said, don't listen to your girlfriends when it comes to shit like this. So many times I have like being in the community and stuff like that, I have seen marriages get trashed because women listen to their fucking dumbass girlfriends. With the you go girl and he ain't shit and fuck him, you can find someone better. And then they listen to that and then they don't find somebody better, or they do something they regret. And, don't. Like I said, men and women are just different. That shouldn't be a controversial take in these spheres. Your girlfriends have a different function than your male friends, right? And I would suggest finding a man from now on that you trust, that you like, maybe an old family friend or like a coworker you've been with for a long time, or maybe like, who knows, a guy that is a little bit older, a little bit wiser, married, that knows that you trust. And get his logic, a smart guy, right? So that being said, that out of the way, you have a baby on the way, 7 months pregnant, that you're about to pop, your first child. You're talking about buying a home. Let's take that off the table. Let's talk about the baby. Do you want to go into that hospital by yourself and have that baby? You know what I mean? Do you want to be a single mom? You know what I mean? So let's talk about this guy, right? I don't know this guy. Maybe and I'm trying to be mean to you because I know you're dealing with some shit, right? But, I can't from where I'm sitting tell you that this guy's not a cheater. You could have the rosy glasses on and not have seen any of his red flags. And he could be this and he just hid it from you. Or you could be completely right and you know better than me and he's not a cheater. It could just be, because here's the deal. Like I said before, men and women are different and men and women cheat for different reasons. When a woman cheats, that means that she's looking for love and the relationship is over. When a man cheats, sometimes it's that, sometimes it's different, whatever. There's just a general rule. Most of the time when a man cheats, he's just thinking with his dick and he makes a dumb decision. Right? So let's go with that. Let's say you know better than me, which you probably do, and he's not a cheater and he loves you and he's trying to make it up to you and he did this dumb thing. Let's say, he's got this baby on the way. Let's say, I'm not trying to, okay. I'm just going to say it. It's very possible that in your pregnancy, you're 7 months in, that you guys haven't been intimate for a while, or maybe not up to what you used to be. He's probably stressed out. It's his first kid. Being a dad, and it's not the same as like a woman's experience, but being a father has a layer of anxiety because you don't understand that baby. You don't have the connection with that baby until that baby comes out. Only you as the mother have a real connection with that baby because that baby grew inside you. It lives in you. It's part of you. he doesn't have that same connection. He has that connection with the baby through you. So he's probably anxious. His whole life's about to change. He's got to fucking pay for, he's probably has a whole lot of feelings and a whole lot of anxieties, a whole lot of weird shit going on. And he went out and partied with his goofball buddies and got drunk. And there was, he's feeling some kind of way. He's feeling a little bit frustrated, and some pretty young girl fucking got on him and he did something stupid, right? Which, whether you're saying it, he's been trying to make it up to you. He realizes that it's stupid. Maybe. Like I said, if this is the scenario. So you have to you're at a crossroads here. Can you forgive him? I'll tell you what, by the way that you're writing, it sounds like you sort of already have forgiven him, and you just haven't gotten over the hurt yet, especially since he hid it from you. But let's be honest. If he told you immediately when he came home, would you be any less hurt? Right? He did something dumb. He panicked. He probably was planning to take it to the grave, so he didn't fucking do it. Right? So he didn't hurt you or whatever. Right? So I know that's not better, but that's what he probably was thinking. This is all my speculation. So this is the crossroad that you're at. You can either have this baby by yourself and kick this guy out and become a single mom and do all of this crap, which is going to suck, not move into this new house that you're looking forward to, and not start your new life, and instead start your life as a mess. Or you could forgive this guy, just accept that he did a dumb thing, and move on. But here's the deal, is that if you do choose to move on, you got to let this go. Because if you don't let it go and you leave it in the past and you accept that he did a dumb young man thing when he was a drunk idiot, and you don't throw it in the garbage, that's going to fester, and you're going to bring it up in arguments in the future to throw it in his face, and then he's going to resent you. Because that's going to be a weapon of guilt. The guilt cudgel that women use is the worst. It is the worst, and he will hate it because he has no defense against it. You can't throw it in his face. You got to let that in the past. If you want to move forward, you got to let that in the fucking past, and you got to forget about it, right? So that's what I would have to say about that. So you got to come to your girlfriends are telling you, fuck this guy, leave him. Are your girlfriends going to hold your hand when you're got the epidural and there's doctors around and you're in labor for 8 fucking hours? Are they going to pay your bills? Are they going to pick up are they going to argue with the doctors on your behalf when they come in and try to chop you up with a C-section like a bunch of butchers because they get a bonus? You know what I mean? And I'm not saying what this guy did was good. I already said this was a scumbag, drunk, idiot, fucking move that this guy did, and he should like make it up to you. Be like, yo, you owe me something big. You owe me. All right. And then after that's atoned for, we let it go, because it sounds like this guy is, you believe that this guy's a good guy and he's your guy, and you don't want to leave him. Right. At the end of the day, if he is this good guy, he's going to take care of you. Right? He's not gonna do this. Your girlfriend's ain't gonna be there when the baby's crying and she's up, or he or she or whatever is up all night and you got to work in the next day. They're not gonna change the diapers when you're too exhausted to get out of bed. You know what I mean? They're not gonna be there for you. Maybe a little bit. They say they will. In reality, they won't. So you have to make this decision. Do you forgive them and move on? Or is it so bad that you're willing to brave it all by yourself? Right. So it's hard. It's a hard decision. It's a hard thing to do. Right. But men and women are different. And this is another thing that I would say is, and this is actually something in my community. I had a young lady reach out to me about a guy that was out doing bonehead shit. Because let's face it, men are dum-dums, and sometimes we're apes, and sometimes we think with our dicks and we don't think straight. Right. Especially because let's face it, sex is different for men than it is for women. For women, it is an expression of affection, of love, of trust, and all of these things. It's this big emotional hoopla. For men, it's not much different than a bodily function most of the time, right? It can be sensual and romantic and shit, but for the most part, sex for a man is like is a bodily function that we just have to get out of our body so we can think straight. That's pretty much what it is. And I know that sounds gross, and it kind of like deflates and makes the act of lovemaking sound less like lovemaking, but we're just being honest here. So what I told this young lady that reached out to me some time ago is that if you want to test this man, if you want to test his loyalty and truly find out if he gives a shit. This other girl had a different situation. This other girl that this guy had a mistress, and he was like seeing her multiple times. And this girl needed to bring this lady needed to bring this guy home. And she didn't want to leave him. She wanted to bring him home. But this is what I told her, and it worked for her. And this is a little crazy. It's a little crazy, but it will test a man's loyalty. So what I told her to do, and this is what you can do if you so choose. Tell him, if you love me and you are loyal to me, what I want you to do to atone is I want to drive over to this girl's house and I want to watch you beat the shit out of her. Not that so let me clarify, we're not actually going to go to that point. What you're fishing for is his reaction. If he looks at, he says, all right, I'll go fuck her up to make this right. Then you know that he didn't care at all about her and he just did a dumb thing. And if of course you'd be like, well, what if I go? And then you say, I'll wait for you. I promise I will wait for you in jail. I will bail you out. We'll figure it out, but I need you to do this. And if he flails and flops and like comes up with his excuses, you know that he's not really about it. You know what I mean? That raises an eyebrow. But if there's a part of him that's like, if he's thinking about it or if he contemplates it, he stops and he's like thinking about, how he can go about doing this or whatever, then you know that he's loyal to you. Because here's the deal. A man that cheats with just some rando girl because he just did a dumb thing doesn't care about her at all. And would be willing to do, you are the mother of his children, would be willing to do evil shit to prove his love and his loyalty to you, including go like beat some bitch up, right? So if he even considers or even gives any sort of signal that he'd be willing to do that, don't do that. Don't take him over there to beat some girl up. He's going to get arrested. That's a horrible idea. You're just fishing for his reaction to this extreme situation. And if he's willing to do that, that means that you are the only woman that he is loyal to. He doesn't care about that. If you need to test his loyalty. I know it's a little crazy, but it works. It works. This other girl that reached out, I told her this, and she said what happened was she said this to him. And he's like, oh, what I get arrested? And she goes, I will fucking bail you out of prison. I will wait for you if you go to jail. I need to see you do this to prove this. And he's like, all right. And then she fucking belted out that, I don't really want you to do that. I just want to hear you say it. He was probably pretty pissed. But you know what? He shouldn't have been out, doing what he was doing, laying with all these floozies and shit just to get his rocks off. That's scumbag shit. Keep it in your pants, dog. You know what I mean? So I know that sounds a little crazy, and I just gave you a whole lot. And I hope that it addressed some of what you're saying, and I hope that it helps. And I'm very, very sorry you're going through something like this, especially pregnant, about to buy a house. It's about the absolute worst time to make a bonehead mistake. But you know what? Guys do. You said he came home drunk, puking, and it's not like him because he doesn't drink. He's probably at the point of stress and anxiety, and he's freaked out about the baby, and he did a dumb thing. Right? So that's what I got to say about it. It's up to you. Are you willing to put it in the past and let it go and forget about it and move forward the way you were? Or are you so you'll never be able to forgive him and fuck him, and now you're willing to brave it alone because this guy fucked up so bad? That's a choice you have to make.
Yeah, it's not an easy choice at all, because single motherhood is one of the absolute worst things that can happen to a woman. We're given this take from the mainstream that it's like, I mean, it's not that it's nothing, but that it's something that is doable. And, in my experience, that is the end of a woman's freedom and in some ways her life. You know what I mean? Like it's a atrocious situation to be in. And I would not enter into it with without the greatest of trepidation. The only other thing I would say is that I don't think alcohol is a factor in these things. Guys do dumb shit, but alcohol doesn't make people do things they didn't want to do, basically. So I don't know. It's a hard situation. I just cannot imagine myself being in his shoes, doing something like that. I don't know. It's just completely, I just don't understand it. I just do not understand it at all. Especially your wife's 7 months pregnant. Like, fuck. I don't know. I'm getting pissed off just thinking about it. And I don't know this guy. I don't know. But certainly don't break up your family lightly. Definitely.
That baby needs a dad. That's what if you said, I need you to pick for me, what are you going to do? There's what is like the most moral or the most whatever kind of idealist option. And then there's the realistic option, you know what I mean? Which, kind of over a barrel. And, I'm not trying, that's a shitty thing to say, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's, I have known women who have been in her situation or close to it, maybe not pregnant, but, with a family, the husband cheats, kids are young, and that situation has gone on to be workable, not good, always broken, but workable. So it's possible for that to heal somewhat. It's possible for her to forgive. And 30 years down the line, have that not be a gaping flesh wound anymore.
Yeah. Some women, I've known women that like eat those L's all the time. They got a guy that fucking goes out and does all kind of shit. And they some women are just like, I don't know. It's different. I read a poll a while back. It was, they asked men and women, what would you rather have I can't remember exactly what it was. Fuck. Just fell out of my head. It was like, would you rather have a partner that, loves you but cheats, or cheats but doesn't love you, or something like that, or doesn't cheat. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And it was unanimous on men said doesn't cheat and doesn't love me, and women unanimously said cheats but loves me.
I just don't think that the cheats and loves is that's not a thing. I just don't think that's a thing. At least serially. I mean, maybe it could be once, and I don't know. Even then, I doubt. But that's just me. But serially, no fucking way. There's no love there.
Well,
there could be a kind of love, but it's I'm not buying that. But maybe I just feel too strong about this. Maybe I just feel too strong in one direction. But
bro, back in the day, guys had mistresses and shit. You know what I mean? It was a thing. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not saying that's a good thing or whatever. I'm not advocating for what this guy does or any guy does. I've never cheated on my wife. I never will. Yeah, I've actually never cheated on a girlfriend. I just don't do that. But, I understand. I know how men are. And you said about drinking, dog, I did some dumb shit when I was drinking. And also just because you in your like fantasies or in your impulses, you want to do something, doesn't mean that like guys, come on. There's times we're men. We got blood in our veins. We're flesh and blood. You see a beautiful woman walking down. That's not your wife. You think things, right? And like, it's just the way that it is. If you have a healthy, sex drive and all that, you think things, you know what I mean? And it's not that you necessarily want to do it or you want, your body wants to do it, but it's not a good thing to do. And it's not what you really, really want to do. You know what I'm saying? It's like your body's like, let's go. And it's like, no, we shouldn't. That's a fucking terrible idea. You know what I mean? So it's like when you're drinking and like, I don't know. I think this guy, it just sounds like he's a good guy and he's like in this and he's just fucked up in the head and he's stressed out and probably, dude, let me tell you, as a married guy, there are a lot of women that will come on to you when they find married guys like attractive. They are into married guys. That is a thing, right? So some pretty young girl who's into married guys probably found this guy that's drunk out of his gourd, feeling some kind of way and came on to him. And he just, I'm not saying it's good, but I'm saying it makes sense. It's not like, he's not a serial murderer.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
A human mistake. It's a guy mistake.
It's a tough situation. I'm just in dad mode. I'm just like trying to think of the advice I'd give my daughter. The advice I give my daughter would be like, give me his fucking address.
Yeah, that's what I said. Because I was thinking that too. If my daughter came and say, hey, I'm fucking pregnant. My husband is cheated on me. I was like, he's a corpse.
Yeah.
He's done. He's done. You know what I mean? It would be like,
yeah.
But I'm detached from that. I'm just trying to give good advice, I guess. That's the kind of, if you're in my community and you reached out to me and you asked me for that advice, that's the advice I would give. And I hope it's helpful for you. And like I said, I'm very, very sorry you're going through this. Blessings and love. Very sweet. Then you say you love us. We love you too. We love all the culture moms out there. All the culture moms. You're our girls. We love you. And we got some culture moms that tune into us and we got our hearts go out to them and stuff like that. So, we love you too. So
that's great. I mean, it's really cool that we've got the ladies listening to the culture dads, and they're getting the guy's perspective, they're getting the dad's perspective. It's when you're in the relationship with somebody that it's the stakes are high, and it's good to just get a kind of outside perspective of like what are guys actually thinking and what is the dad sort of dynamic with your kids and with the wife and everything like that. So that's what we're here for. This is what this podcast is all about.
Oh yeah. Damn, fucking giving it. Some of these, you got the galaxy brain questions. We had like interpersonal problems. This was intense. 3.5 hours of this. All right.
Well, we better close this out unless there's any more.
No, I think that was it. I had the guitar one. I had the guy with the dating, the worst takes, and this lady. So,
all right.
That's it. All right, let's wrap it up, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in here. If you like what we're doing, you love Culture Dad, you want to see more? If you want to see more AMAs, hit us up. Let us know in the comments. Let us know on the telegrams, wherever you guys are at. Hit us up and let us know if you want to see more live Culture Dads. But if you want to check out our huge back catalog of 76, 78 freaking episodes, you want to check out our huge catalog of awesome content, you can go over to ImperiumPress.org/podcast. Podcast or Culture Dads, that's culture with a K, culturedads.com, and go follow the links and sign up for the Gumroad over there. So many great perks, such as hardback copies of the Imperium Press catalog. You can't beat it. You just can't beat it. Go over there, get signed up, get your hardback copies of your folk tales, your Beowulf, freaking Populist Delusion, the Ancient City. Come on. You're going to love it. So go get signed up over there. And most importantly, you get Culture Dads every single week. You get the dads with you every single week. What's better than that? You can't beat any of that. You can't beat it. So now I'm seeing why that's my catchphrase now. So, so go over there, get signed up, buy books. You want to check out what I'm doing? Make sure to go over to thebizarrearchives.com/podcast. Right. Thebizarrearchives.com. I mixed up my two plugs there. Go to thebizarrearchives.com. I'm getting loopy. 3.5 hours. What do you want?
It's rare. It's rare. You're usually a machine with that shit.
I know. It's like muscle memory. This time I'm fucking it up. So go to thebizarrearchives.com, buy books. Lots of great books in and around $10. Cosmic horror, sword and sorcery, cyberpunk, all that good stuff. New authors, old authors. I almost said you can't beat it again, but you can't beat it. What else do you want me to say? If you can't beat it, you can't beat it. So go over there, buy books, follow us on Twitter and Telegram at The Bizarre Archives, and stay tuned for Hearth Fire Radio coming very, very soon. You guys are going to love it. So until next time, guys, hails and blessings. I hope everybody had a very Merry Christmas and Merry Yule. I got my Yule party tomorrow. So I'll see you guys in a couple of days. I'm going to drink mead. We're going to eat food. It's going to get wild. I'm going to have a good time. So I hope you guys are having wonderful holidays, and blessings to all of you, and love to all you guys. I'll see you guys next time here on Culture Dad's Age of Sword and